The bullet that killed her hope came before the one that proved her worth. Ava Morales wasn't supposed to be holding a sniper rifle when the valley erupted into hell. She was just the ammo carrier, the ghost in the background, the shadow no one trusted with anything more dangerous than a supply crate. But when the team's elite sniper went down in a spray of blood and chaos, when the enemy closed in from three sides and every second meant another soldier dead, she made a choice that would either save them all or condemn her forever. One shot, one chance, one impossible moment that separated the forgotten from the legendary. This is the story of the girl they overlooked, until she became the weapon they couldn't ignore. Before we dive in, I need you to do something for me. Stay with this story until the very end, like this video. Comment below with the city you're watching from so I can see how far Ava's journey travels across the world. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The desert heat pressed down like a physical weight, distorting the horizon into wavering sheets of liquid glass. Private Ava Morales crouched behind a supply crate, sweat burning tracks through the dust caked on her face, listening to the rhythm of routine that had defined her entire deployment. Footsteps. Silence. Orders barked in clipped military efficiency. More silence. She was invisible here. That was the point. Morales, stop daydreaming and get that ammo sorted before Jackson has my ass. She looked up at Corporal Hayes, 30-something, perpetually sunburned, perpetually annoyed at everything that moved slower than he wanted. He didn't wait for her response. He never did. Yes, Corporal. The words tasted like dust. Everything tasted like dust out here. 6 months. 6 months of running supplies, organizing inventory, watching the elite operators move through base like they were carved from something harder than bone. Task Force Phantom, 12 of the deadliest soldiers the military had ever assembled, handpicked for operations that officially didn't exist. And her? She carried their bullets. Ava hoisted another crate, feeling the familiar burn in her shoulders. The M4 carbine strapped to her back was standard issue, rarely fired except on the range for qualification. Her hands knew the weight of ammunition boxes better than weapons. That was her war. Logistics, not combat. Hey, Morales. She turned. Private First Class Chen jogged over, rifle bouncing against his tactical vest. Unlike Hayes, Chen actually looked at her when he spoke. Small mercy. You good? You've been quiet today. More than usual, I mean. She forced a smile. Just focused. Yeah, well, stay focused and stay invisible. That's the game, right? He lowered his voice, glancing toward the command tent where shadows moved behind canvas walls. Brass is nervous today. Something big's brewing. Something big is always brewing. Not like this. Chen's expression tightened. Radio chatter's gone weird. Command's pulling operational maps I've never seen before. And Sergeant Reeves just requisitioned enough ammunition to fight a small war. Reeves. The name alone carried weight. Task Force Phantom's second in command, a man whose reputation preceded him like thunder before lightning. Cold, efficient, lethal. Probably just another recon op, Ava said, but her pulse quickened anyway. Maybe. Chen didn't sound convinced. Just keep your head down, yeah? He jogged off before she could respond. Keep your head down. Stay invisible. Survive. That was the mantra. The unspoken rule for support personnel in a world of operators who moved through shadows and came back covered in blood and silence. She'd learned it fast. Learned that asking questions got you reassigned, that showing initiative got you flagged as a liability, that the safest place for someone like her was exactly where she stood, unnoticed. But safety had never been what drew her to the military. The briefing happened at 1700 hours. Ava wasn't invited. She never was. But she could see them gathering, Phantom team filing into the command tent with the kind of relaxed confidence that came from surviving things that killed everyone else. She recognized their silhouettes. Lieutenant Marcus Kane, team leader, walking like he owned not just the base, but the entire desert. Staff Sergeant Alex Ghost Reeves, moving like smoke given form. And bringing up the rear, the team's sniper, Specialist David Park, carrying his custom rifle like it was part of his skeleton. Park was legend around base. 200 confirmed kills, perfect record. The kind of shooter who could thread a bullet through a keyhole at 1,000 meters in a sandstorm. Ava had never spoken to him. had never even been close enough to try. The tent flap dropped. Whatever they were planning, it was happening soon. She returned to sorting ammunition, hands moving on autopilot while her mind wandered. This wasn't the life she'd imagined when she enlisted. She'd pictured purpose, challenge, proving herself in ways that mattered. Instead, she got routine, repetition, the slow grind of being nobody. Morales. She straightened instantly. Sergeant Reeves stood 3 feet away, close enough that she could see the scar running down his jawline. A souvenir from Kandahar, according to base gossip. Yes, Sergeant. His eyes were gray and flat, assessing her the way you'd assess equipment. Teams moving out at 2100. We need full combat load, extra mags, 2 spare barrels for the 240, and Park's specialized rounds. You'll prep and deliver to the staging area by 2030. Understood, Sergeant. He started to turn, then paused. You've been with us how long? 6 months, Sergeant. You qualified expert on the M4? The question caught her off guard. Yes, Sergeant. Top of my basic training class. Something flickered in his expression, too quick to read. Good. Make sure you're armed when you deliver supplies. SOP. Then he was gone, leaving her standing there with questions burning holes in her thoughts. Standard operating procedure didn't usually require supply runners to be armed for deliveries within the wire, but questioning Reeves was like questioning gravity. You didn't. The sun had started its descent when Ava finished prepping the loadout, each magazine precisely packed, each piece of equipment triple-checked. She worked with the kind of focused intensity that had always separated her from mediocrity, the reason she'd scored expert marksman despite being relegated to supply duty. Talking to yourself again, Morales? She looked up. Private First Class Sarah Kim leaned against the doorframe of the supply depot, grinning. Kim was Signal's intelligence, one of the few other women on base, and one of the even fewer people who'd bothered learning Ava's first name. Just making sure everything's perfect, Ava said. It always is. That's your problem. Kim walked over, examining the carefully organized equipment. You're too good at this job. They'll never move you up if you keep being irreplaceable at the bottom. What's the alternative? Do it badly? Do it well enough. Save the excellence for something that gets you noticed. Kim's expression softened. Look, I know you want more than this. Everyone knows. But wanting and getting are different languages in this man's army. So I should just accept it? I'm saying pick your battles. This? Kim gestured at the ammunition crates. This isn't a battle. This is a holding pattern. Before Ava could respond, an explosion of sound erupted from somewhere outside. Not gunfire, but raised voices, angry, urgent. They exchanged glances and moved to the door. Lieutenant Kane stood outside the command tent, face flushed, jabbing a finger at a map spread across a tactical table. Reeves stood opposite him, arms crossed, expression carved from stone. Complete intelligence failure, Kane was saying, voice tight with controlled fury. We're supposed to insert with zero knowledge of enemy strength? That's not an operation, that's a suicide run. The mission parameters are clear, Lieutenant. Reeves's voice was quieter, but somehow carried more weight. We go in, secure the target, extract. Enemy force estimates are secondary. Secondary? They're fundamental. If we're walking into a battalion strength element with a 12-man team, then we adapt, like we always do. Kane's jaw worked. I'm not risking my people on bad intel. Your people volunteered for this. They knew the risks. Reeves leaned forward slightly. And unless you're refusing a direct order from command, we're wheels up in 3 hours regardless of your concerns. The silence that followed felt like pressure before an explosion. Finally, Kane straightened. Fine. But when this goes sideways, it's on record that I objected. Noted. Ava and Kim pulled back from the doorway before they could be seen watching. That didn't sound good, Kim whispered. No, it didn't. Something cold was forming in Ava's stomach. Bad intel. Uncertain enemy strength. A mission with parameters that had the team leader pushing back. She'd been around enough pre-mission tension to recognize the difference between normal jitters and genuine concern. This felt like the latter. I need to finish prepping, Ava said. Kim studied her face. Be careful out there. I'm just delivering supplies. Yeah, that's what worries me. At 20:30 hours, Ava loaded the equipment onto an ATV and drove toward the staging area on the eastern edge of base. The sun had dropped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of dying fire. Night descended fast in the desert. One moment twilight, the next full dark, punctuated by stars so bright they looked artificial. Phantom Team was already gearing up when she arrived. 12 operators moving through pre-mission rituals with practiced efficiency, checking weapons, testing communication equipment, the quiet focus of professionals preparing to step into violence. She started unloading, distributing equipment according to the roster Reeves had provided. Most of the team ignored her. Standard. She was furniture to them, necessary but unworthy of acknowledgement, except Park. The sniper stood apart from the others, field stripping his rifle with movements so precise they looked choreographed. Ava had seen plenty of weapons maintenance, but watching Park work was different, reverent, like he was handling something sacred. Specialized rounds? His voice startled her. He hadn't looked up, hands still moving through the disassembly process. Yes, specialist. 60 rounds, .300 Winchester Magnum, match grade. She held out the ammunition case. He finally looked at her. Dark eyes, utterly calm, assessing. You know the difference between match grade and standard issue? Match grade is more consistent, tighter tolerances, better accuracy at distance. A ghost of a smile touched his face. Most supply runners wouldn't know that. I'm not most supply runners. The smile vanished, but something like respect flickered in his expression. Clearly, he took the ammunition, checked the case, nodded. Good work, Private. 2 words. Good work. From someone whose opinion actually mattered in the world of combat operations. It shouldn't have felt like victory, but it did. Morales. She turned. Reeves approached, tactical vest loaded with enough ammunition and equipment to sustain a small war. You're staying until we roll out. Lieutenant's orders. Yes, Sergeant. She found a spot near the staging area perimeter, M4 carbine resting across her knees, and watched the team finalize preparations. Radio checks. Last-minute gear adjustments. Kane moving among his people with quiet words. Encouragement, maybe, or final confirmations. The tension from earlier had settled into something harder, focused. These men were about to step into darkness, trusting their training and each other to bring them back alive. And she would return to the supply depot, to the routine, to being invisible. The thought tasted bitter. Phantom Team, mount up. Engines roared to life. 4 heavily armored vehicles. Enough firepower to level a city block. The operators loaded in with mechanical efficiency. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Park was the last to board, rifle case secured across his back. He paused at the vehicle door, looking back toward where Ava sat in the shadows. Their eyes met across 30 feet of dusty ground. He nodded once, a small gesture, acknowledgement. Then he was gone, swallowed by the vehicle's dark interior. The convoy rolled out at exactly 2100 hours, headlights cutting through desert darkness like knives. Ava watched until the red taillights disappeared beyond the perimeter, leaving only silence and settling dust. She stood shouldering her rifle and started back toward the depot. But something made her stop. A feeling. Instinct. The kind of awareness that separated survivors from casualties on a battlefield. The sense that invisible threads were pulling tight, that whatever was about to happen would matter more than routine allowed for. She looked back toward the eastern perimeter, toward the darkness that had swallowed Phantom Team. Stay safe, she whispered to the empty desert. The desert didn't answer. The attack came at 0200 hours. Ava jolted awake in her bunk, adrenaline slamming through her system before conscious thought could catch up. Not the alarm. Not a drill. The sound was wrong. Distant percussion, irregular rhythm. Explosions. She was moving before full awareness hit, muscle memory taking over. Boots, vest, rifle, helmet. 30 seconds from unconscious to combat ready because hesitation killed. Outside, the base had transformed into controlled chaos. Personnel running to defensive positions. Officers shouting coordinates. Somewhere in the distance, automatic weapons fire stitched the darkness with tracers. Morales! Hayes appeared out of the chaos, face streaked with dirt and something darker. Supply depot now! We're distributing emergency ammunition. She ran, The depot was already swarming with personnel grabbing equipment with desperate efficiency. Hayes thrust a radio into her hands. Command frequency. Stay on it. We might need emergency resupply to the perimeter. She clipped the radio to her vest, ears tuning automatically to the controlled panic crackling through the speaker. Contact East Perimeter. Multiple hostiles. Need saw gunner to Sector 3. Where the hell is our air support? Then a different voice cut through. Calm, cold, unmistakable. Command, this is Phantom Actual. We are under effective fire, Enemy Strength Battalion Plus, requesting immediate QRF to grid November 7426. Kane, calling for quick reaction force. Ava's blood turned to ice. Phantom Actual, negative on QRF. Base is under simultaneous attack. You are on your own. Execute E and E protocols and return to base when able. Escape and evade. The order you gave when extraction wasn't possible. When surviving meant running. Copy command, Phantom out. The radio went silent except for the continuing chatter about base defense. But Ava's mind was screaming. Phantom team was trapped, outnumbered, alone. Morales! Hayes grabbed her shoulder. I need you focused. Start distributing. The explosion that cut him off was close enough to feel in her chest. The western wall. Something had breached the western wall. Chaos stopped being controlled. Tut. The next 2 hours were a blur of ammunition crates running between positions, ducking when bullets cracked overhead. The base held, barely. Whoever had coordinated this attack knew what they were doing. Simultaneous assault on the base and Phantom Team's insertion point. Sophisticated. Planned. Someone had leaked the operation. Ava didn't have time to think about implications. She ran supplies, reloaded magazines, helped carry wounded to the medical tent. Her hands shook, her heart hammered. Fear was a living thing in her throat. But she didn't stop. At 0400 hours, the attack on the base broke. The enemy withdrew, leaving burning vehicles and bodies in their wake. Casualty count, 7 wounded, 2 dead. Could have been worse. Should have been worse. Ava collapsed against a sandbag wall, lungs burning, hands cramping from gripping her rifle for hours. Around her, the base was already shifting from combat to recovery. Damage assessment, medical treatment, the grim machinery of post-battle routine. Her radio crackled. Phantom to any friendly, we are taking effective fire. Sniper down. I repeat, sniper down. She was on her feet before conscious thought. Casualties mounting. Enemy has superior position. We cannot hold... Park. They were talking about Park. Requesting any available support, grid November 7-4. The transmission dissolved into static and gunfire. Ava found herself running toward the command tent, not thinking, just moving on instinct that screamed wrong, wrong, everything is wrong. Inside, Lieutenant Colonel Morrison stood over a tactical map, face gray with exhaustion and decisions no one should have to make. Sir, she barely recognized her own voice. Phantom team needs... I'm aware, Private. His tone was flat, dead. We have no assets to send. The QRF is securing base perimeter. Our air support is grounded for maintenance. Phantom team is executing E and E protocols. But they're pinned down. They have wounded. Their sniper... No. Each word was a hammer blow. But I have 300 personnel on this base and limited resources. I cannot sacrifice everyone for 12. The logic was sound, military, necessary. It was also a death sentence. Sir, if we could just... You're dismissed, Private. Return to your duties. She stood there, paralyzed between training and something else. Something that felt like burning. That's an order, Morales. She saluted, turned, walked out into pre-dawn darkness that tasted like ash. Phantom team was dying out there. Park was dying out there. And she was here, invisible, useless, exactly as unimportant as she'd always been. The rage that filled her was quiet, controlled, absolute. She walked past the depot, past her bunk, toward the motor pool, where vehicles sat in neat rows, keys hanging on a board in the duty office. A voice in her head that sounded like every superior officer she'd ever had. This is stupid. This is insubordination. This will end your career. Another voice, quieter but stronger. They're dying. Ava Morales had spent 6 months being invisible, following orders, playing it safe. She took the keys to an ATV, started the engine, and drove toward the sound of distant gunfire, leaving safety and sanity somewhere behind her in the darkness. Because being invisible meant being safe, but it also meant being nothing, and she was done with nothing. The desert at night was a maze of shadows and false distances. Ava navigated by memory and the GPS strapped to the ATV's handlebars, pushing the vehicle faster than safety allowed. Every bump threatened to throw her. Every sound could be enemy movement. She didn't slow down. The grid coordinates burned in her memory. November 7426. Approximately 15 clicks northeast. Terrain, rocky valley, elevated positions on 3 sides. Perfect for an ambush. Perfect for slaughter. Her radio continued its grim narration. Lost 2 more, falling back to secondary position. They have us sighted. Every time we move. Parks hit bad. Needs immediate evac. She pushed the ATV harder. 15 minutes later, the valley appeared below her, and her breath stopped. Tracer fire cut through darkness like angry fireflies. Explosions bloomed orange against rock. The distinctive crack of different weapons created a symphony of violence. And in the center, a small cluster of defensive positions that could only be Phantom Team, surrounded, outnumbered, dying by degrees. Ava killed the engine and dismounted, moving to a rock outcropping that gave her a view of the battlefield. Her hands found her rifle automatically, muscle memory from hundreds of hours on the range taking over. She wasn't Phantom Team, wasn't even infantry, just a supply runner with delusions of competence. But she could see what they couldn't from their position. The enemy had established a sniper position on the eastern ridge. Every time Phantom tried to maneuver, that sniper pinned them down with precise fire. Park would have countered him. Park was down. Without someone to neutralize that sniper, Phantom Team would die here. Ava's heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her teeth. She had 2 choices: return to base, report what she'd seen, live with being useless, or become visible in the worst possible way. Her hands were shaking as she unslung her rifle. M4 carbine. Effective range maybe 300 meters on a good day with a skilled shooter. The enemy sniper was at least twice that distance, elevated, dug in. Impossible shot with this weapon. But Park's rifle. She could see it from here, abandoned on a ridge near Phantom's position where they'd had to leave it when they retreated. Custom rifle. Schmidt and Bender scope. Chambered in. 300 Win Mag. A weapon she'd never fired, had never even held. The smart move was obvious. Radio for help. Wait for professionals. Ava started moving down the slope toward Phantom's position. Smart had never been the point. The infiltration took 20 minutes of crawling through rocks and darkness, every meter a lifetime of exposed vulnerability. Enemy positions were close enough that she could hear voices, smell cigarette smoke, feel the pressure of being one mistake from discovery. She reached Phantom's perimeter just as another explosion rocked the valley. Contact left! Grenade out! Gunfire erupted so close she felt the shockwave. She pressed herself into rocks, tasting copper and terror, waiting for the violence to pass over her like a storm. Then someone grabbed her collar and yanked her into cover. She found herself staring at Reeves, his face a mask of blood and fury. "The hell are you doing here, Private?" Her voice failed. Started again. "I saw the enemy sniper position. Eastern Ridge. He's got you pinned." "We know." His tone was knife-sharp. "That doesn't explain why a supply runner just infiltrated a combat zone." "I can help." "You can die." He released her collar, gesturing to the carnage around them. "Look at this. Look at what's happening. This is what help looks like from untrained personnel." She looked, saw 3 bodies covered with ponchos, saw wounded being treated with desperate efficiency, saw operators with 1,000-yard stares running on fumes and adrenaline, saw Park, unconscious, breathing shallow, bandages soaked through. "Where's his rifle?" The words came out before thought could stop them. Reeves's expression went flat. "You're joking. Where is it?" "Ridge, 50 meters north. Had to leave it when we fell back." His eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because someone needs to take out that sniper before he kills the rest of you." And you think that someone is you? A supply runner who's never seen combat? I think, Ava said, meeting his stare with something that felt like burning, that your other option is dying here while I watch. And I'm done watching. For a long moment, Reeves just looked at her, assessing, calculating odds she couldn't see. Then he keyed his radio. Lieutenant, we have a situation. Kane appeared 30 seconds later, moving in a combat crouch, face blackened with soot and blood. His eyes widened when he saw Ava. What the? She says she can take out the enemy sniper, Reeves said. No inflection, just facts. Kane's expression cycled through disbelief, anger, calculation. You're the supply runner. Yes, sir. You've never been in combat. No, sir. And you think you can make a shot that Park couldn't make before he went down? She wanted to say yes, wanted confidence, had only honesty. I don't know, sir, but I know if someone doesn't try, you all die here. And I'd rather die trying than live knowing I could have done something. Kane and Reeves exchanged glances. Some unspoken communication passed between them. That rifle weighs 15 pounds, Kane said. It kicks like a mule. The scope is zeroed for Park's shooting style. Wind reading at that distance requires years of experience you don't have. The probability of you making this shot is higher than 0, sir, which is better than what you have right now. Another explosion. Closer this time. Someone screamed. Kane's jaw worked. If you miss, you give away your position. They'll target you with everything they have. Understood, sir. And if you die, it's on me for allowing this insanity. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. If I die, it's on me. But if I don't try and you all die anyway, that's on both of us. Silence. Gunfire. The distant crack of the enemy sniper taking another shot. Finally, Kane spoke. Reeves, get her to the rifle. Provide cover fire when she moves. If she somehow makes this shot... He looked at Ava. We'll court-martial you later for disobeying orders. Yes, sir. And Morales? Sir? Don't miss. The sprint to the abandoned rifle position was 50 meters of pure terror. Reeves and 2 other operators laid down suppressing fire, forcing enemy heads down while Ava ran faster than physics should allow. Bullets kicked up dust around her feet. Something hot buzzed past her ear. She dove behind the ridge, heart trying to explode through her ribs. There. Park's rifle lay exactly where he'd dropped it, pristine, perfect, waiting. She grabbed it with shaking hands, feeling the weight, the balance, the absolutely foreign sense of holding something she had no right to possess. The scope alone probably cost more than she made in a year. Morales, status! Reeves' voice crackled through her radio. I have the weapon. Setting up now. You have maybe 90 seconds before they realize someone's in this position. Make them count. She extended the rifle's bipod, settling into a prone position behind the rocks. Through the scope, the world magnified into crystalline clarity. She could see individual enemy positions, could count muzzle flashes, could see the enemy sniper on the eastern ridge, barely visible behind his own cover. 800 meters. Maybe more. Wind blowing left to right, maybe 5 knots. Elevation difference. She had no idea how to calculate it properly. This was impossible. Her hands found the familiar rhythm anyway. Cheek weld, breathing, stance. The fundamentals drilled into her at basic, repeated 10,000 times on ranges where targets didn't shoot back. Steady, Morales. Reeves's voice in her ear, calm despite the chaos. You've got this. She didn't have this. Didn't have anything except desperation and a weapon she'd never fired. The enemy sniper fired again. Through her scope, she saw the muzzle flash. Saw a phantom operator drop, clutching his shoulder. No more time. Ava steadied her breathing, felt her heartbeat slow into that strange space between seconds. The world contracted to a single line of sight, single possibility. She adjusted for wind, guessed at elevation, centered the crosshairs on where she thought the target would be. Inhaled, held, pulled the trigger. The rifle's recoil was massive, worse than she'd imagined, slamming into her shoulder like a hammer. The scope momentarily blurred from the shock. When her vision cleared, she searched frantically for the enemy position. No movement. Had she missed? Hit? Then she saw it. a figure slumping forward in the enemy sniper position, not moving, not firing, dead. "Holy shit," Reeves breathed over the radio. "She got him. Phantom actual. Enemy sniper is down." The battlefield transformed instantly. Without their sniper providing overwatch, the enemy assault lost its coordination. Phantom teams surged forward, reclaiming ground, momentum shifting like a physical force. Ava couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what had just happened. She'd killed someone, made an impossible shot, become visible in the most violent way imaginable. "Morales, get down!" Reeves's warning came half a second too late. The bullet meant for her head missed by inches, close enough that she felt the shockwave, heard the crack of supersonic passage. Instinct threw her into the rocks as the world exploded into incoming fire. They'd spotted her position, and now the entire enemy force was trying to kill her specifically. She'd made the shot. Now she had to survive what came next. The first round struck the rock 6 inches from her head, spraying fragments that cut her cheek. Ava rolled left as the second bullet punched through the space where her torso had been. And suddenly, the world was nothing but incoming fire and the desperate animal need to survive. "Move! Move now!" Reeves's voice was barely audible over the gunfire, tearing apart her position. She grabbed Park's rifle and threw herself down the reverse slope, gravity and terror propelling her in a controlled fall that was more crash than tactical movement. Bullets chased her trajectory, kicking up geysers of dust and rock fragments. Something hot grazed her thigh. Not a direct hit, just the kiss of a round passing too close. She hit the bottom hard enough to knock the air from her lungs. "Covering fire, southwest quadrant." Kane's voice cut through the chaos with parade ground clarity. "Suppress that machine gun nest." The Phantom team operators opened up with synchronized violence. Saw gunners laid down streams of fire that forced enemy heads down. Grenadiers put 40mm rounds into suspected positions. The valley became a cauldron of light and noise. Ava crawled toward Phantom's perimeter on her belly, rifle clutched to her chest, every meter feeling like a mile. Her hands were bleeding. Her leg burned where the near miss had scorched through her uniform. Fear tasted like copper and bile. Hands grabbed her collar and hauled her over a sandbag wall. She found herself in a fighting position barely large enough for 2 people, pressed against an operator she recognized as Corporal Diaz, the team's combat medic, normally quick with a joke, now stone-faced and focused. "You okay?" he asked, eyes already scanning her for wounds. "Yeah, I think. Maybe." That's 2 more answers than most people give. He pressed a field dressing into her hands. "Your cheek's bleeding. Hold that while I work." She did, watching him move between wounded with the kind of calm that came from seeing worse and keeping people alive anyway. 3 operators lay in various states of injury. Park was unconscious, hooked to an IV, breathing shallow. Another soldier, she thought his name was Martinez, clutched a bandaged shoulder, face gray with blood loss and shock. "How bad?" Ava asked. Diaz didn't look up from checking Park's vitals. "Bad enough. We've got 3 critical, 4 walking wounded, and everyone's running on fumes. Ammunition's at 30%, no extraction, no air support, and we just burned through our last grenades. But the sniper's down. They can't pin you anymore." "Yeah, about that." Diaz finally met her eyes. "That was either the gutsiest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. Haven't decided which. Can it be both?" A ghost of a smile touched his face. "Usually is." Then it vanished. But now they know someone's up there with a long gun. They're going to adjust tactics, and when they do, an explosion cut him off, close enough that the shockwave felt like a physical slap. Ava's ears rang. Dust and smoke rolled through the position. "RPG!" someone shouted. "They're bringing up heavy weapons." Kane appeared through the smoke, face a mask of controlled fury. His eyes locked onto Ava with an intensity that made her want to disappear. "Morales, with me, now!" She scrambled after him to what passed for command position. A cluster of rocks with a tactical map spread across an ammo crate. Reeves was already there, along with the team's communication specialist and one of the saw gunners. Kane didn't waste time. "You made the shot. Against all probability, logic, and reason, you made the shot. Now tell me, can you do it again?" The question hit like a punch. "Sir, Not asking for modesty, asking for capability assessment. The enemy is regrouping. When they come again, they'll have learned from the first assault. I need to know if you're an asset or a liability." Reeves leaned forward. "Lieutenant, she's untrained. That shot was impossible. I know." Kane's expression didn't change. But impossible happened. "So I'm asking again, Private Morales, can you shoot?" Every eye was on her. These men, legends, operators, professionals who'd forgotten more about combat than she'd ever learn, waiting for her answer. The truth would have been, "I don't know. I've never done this before." That shot was luck and desperation, and I'm terrified I can't do it twice. But they didn't need truth. They needed hope. "Give me targets, sir. I'll drop them." Kane studied her face for a long moment. Whatever he saw there made him nod. "Reeves, get her set up on that ridge. Best firing position we have left. She provides overwatch while we execute a fighting withdrawal to the extraction point." "Sir, that's 5 clicks through hostile territory." "I'm aware, which is why we need someone watching our backs." He turned to Ava. "You hold that position until we're clear. Anything that moves toward us, you stop it. Understand?" "Yes, sir." Ammunition count?" She checked the rifle's magazine, the spare mags she'd grabbed. 48 rounds, sir." "Make them count. We don't have resupply." Reeves moved closer, voice dropping. "Lieutenant, if they spot her position again, then she moves, or she dies. Same as the rest of us." Kane's tone was flat, final. "We're out of good options, Sergeant. This is what we have." The silence that followed was broken only by distant gunfire and someone's labored breathing. Finally, Reeves nodded. "Copy that. I'll get her positioned." As Ava turned to follow him, Kane's hand shot out, gripping her shoulder, hard. "Private, look at me." She did. "You're about to do something that terrifies you, something you're not trained for, something that every rational part of your brain is screaming is suicide." His grip tightened. "Do it anyway. Because fear is just noise, and noise doesn't matter when lives are on the line. Clear?" "Clear, sir." "Good." He released her. "Now go be the ghost none of us knew we needed." The new position was a nightmare of exposure and limited cover. A rocky outcropping 30 meters from the main perimeter, elevated just enough to give sightlines across the valley floor. Good for shooting, terrible for surviving. Reeves helped her set up, moving with the kind of efficient silence that marked real professionals. He positioned the rifle, checked her sightlines, adjusted the bipod. "You know what you're doing with this weapon?" he asked. "I know the theory. The theory and practice are different languages in combat." He pulled out a small notepad, sketching quick diagrams. "Scope zeroed for 600 meters. Beyond that, you need to compensate. Wind's your biggest variable. See those bushes at your 9 o'clock? She looked. Scraggly vegetation about 400 meters out, swaying in the breeze. "That's your wind indicator. They're moving left to right, moderate speed. Call it 7 to 8 knots. At 800 meters, that's roughly 2 MOA of drift. You're aiming right-handed, so hold slightly left of target." "How slightly?" "Feel it. Wind reading isn't math. It's intuition built from experience you don't have." His expression was unreadable. "But you made that first shot somehow, so trust whatever instinct got you there." "What if my instinct's wrong? Then people die." No judgment in his voice, just fact. "But they're dying anyway if you don't try. So wrong is still better than nothing." He keyed his radio. "Phantom actual, overwatch position set. Morales is green." Kane's response crackled back. "Copy. Execute withdrawal in 5 mics. Morales, you are weapons free on any hostile targets." 5 minutes. They'd be moving in 5 minutes, and she'd be alone up here. Reeves started to move, then paused. "Hey, you scared?" "Terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you alert." He met her eyes. "But don't let it paralyze you. The second you freeze, you're dead. Stay fluid, stay moving, and for what it's worth," something almost like respect crossed his face. "That first shot was one of the best I've ever seen. Don't let it be your last." Then he was gone, sliding back toward the perimeter like smoke. Ava was alone. She settled into position, cheek against the stock, eye to the scope. Through the magnified optics, the valley floor spread out in crystalline detail. Enemy positions, dead ground, approach vectors. Everything Park would have seen before he went down. Her radio crackled with terse updates. Team 1, moving now. Cover left flank. Contact, 11 o'clock, 200 meters. Muzzle flash in her peripheral vision. She swung the rifle, found the target, enemy fighter with an AK variant firing from behind a rock formation. Range, approximately 500 meters. Breathe, steady, compensate for wind, squeeze. The rifle bucked. Through the scope, the target dropped. Good hit, Overwatch. Keep it up. Another target, then another. She fell into a rhythm that felt like muscle memory from ranges she'd qualified on. Except here, the target shot back and the consequences of missing were measured in lives. 6 rounds. 7. 8. Each shot was a small eternity. Each hit a minor miracle. The Phantom team operators moved through the valley in a coordinated withdrawal, bounding Overwatch, mutual support, the deadly ballet of professionals who'd done this 1,000 times. She watched them through her scope, providing cover fire when enemy elements tried to flank. Overwatch. We've got movement, your 2 o'clock ridgeline. She swung right. Found the threat. 3 fighters positioning what looked like an RPG launcher. Range, 700 meters. Elevated. Moving. This wasn't a static target on a qualification range. She tracked the lead fighter, compensating for movement, wind, distance. Her finger found the trigger. The shot felt different this time, less certain. The target was moving erratically, and the wind had shifted. She fired anyway. Miss. The round kicked up dust 3 feet left of the target. Shit. She worked the bolt, chambering another round. The fighters had frozen, looking for the shooter. She had maybe 2 seconds before they went to ground. Breathe, adjust, trust the weapon. Second shot. The lead fighter dropped. The other 2 scattered, but one made the mistake of moving into open ground. She tracked him, led the target, fired. He went down hard. The third fighter abandoned the RPG and ran. Excellent shooting, Overwatch. That's 7 confirmed. Ammunition status? Ava checked her magazine. 32 rounds remaining. Copy. Team is Oscar Mike. Maintain position for another 3 mics. 3 more minutes of exposure. Of being the target every enemy fighter would want to eliminate. The scope's reticle wavered slightly. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline dump and the physical toll of managing a rifle that weighed as much as a small child. Focus. They need you. Movement caught her eye. Southeast quadrant. A group of enemy fighters advancing in tactical formation toward Phantom's withdrawal route. Professional. Coordinated. Not the scattered militia she'd been engaging. Phantom actual. You have enemy QRF element moving to intercept. Grid November C7441. 8 to 10 personnel. Combat load. Copy. Overwatch. Can you engage? Range check. 900 meters. Wind gusting. Multiple moving targets in a dispersed formation. The kind of engagement that required skills she didn't have. I can try, sir. Do better than try. We need that element suppressed or we're walking into an ambush. She centered the scope on the lead fighter. This far out, the wind reading was guesswork. The elevation compensation was theory. Everything she'd learned on ranges was designed for 600 meters or less, but Reeves had said to trust her instinct, and her instinct said, hold high and left. She fired. The round took the lead fighter in the chest. He dropped instantly, and the formation scattered into cover. She worked the bolt, found another target emerging from rocks, fired. Hit. Another fighter tried to flank. She led him, compensated. Fired. Miss. Adjust. Fire again. Hit. Jesus Christ, she's dropping them like targets. Someone's voice on the radio, awed despite the situation. But the enemy QRF wasn't breaking. They were adapting, using better cover, moving in patterns designed to make targeting difficult. These weren't militia. These were trained soldiers. And they'd figured out where she was shooting from. The first round meant for her position went high, cracking overhead with a sound like ripping canvas. The second was closer. The third sparked off rock 5 feet to her left. Overwatch, you are taking fire. Recommend displacement. Negative. Her voice surprised her, steady despite the fear churning in her gut. I have eyes on their approach. If I move, you're blind. Morales, I'm staying, sir. Just make it count. She fired again. And again. Each shot drew more return fire, but each shot also forced the enemy to keep their heads down, slowing their advance enough for Phantom to widen the gap. Ammunition counter in her head. 24 rounds left. 23. 22. Her shoulder was a mass of bruises from the rifle's recoil. Her cheek throbbed where rock fragments had cut her. Her hands cramped from gripping the weapon. She kept shooting. Phantom team is clear of the kill zone. Overwatch, get out of there. Ava fired her last round into the enemy position, then grabbed the rifle and rolled backward off the ridge. Bullets chased her trajectory, hammering the rocks where she'd been positioned seconds before. She hit the ground running, rifle clutched to her chest, legs pumping in a sprint that felt like flying and drowning at the same time. The fighting position she'd occupied erupted in a shower of rock and dust as something heavy, maybe a grenade, maybe an RPG, detonated on target. They'd had her zeroed. Another 10 seconds, and she'd have been paced. Overwatch is displaced, moving to rally point. She ran toward where Phantom Team had consolidated, a cluster of rocks 400 meters northeast. Every step was agony. The rifle weighed 1,000 pounds. Her lungs burned like she was breathing fire. Halfway there, her leg gave out. She went down hard, momentum carrying her into a tumbling roll that slammed her into a boulder with enough force to see stars. The rifle skittered from her hands. Get up now. Her body refused to cooperate. The near miss graze from earlier had torn open during the sprint, and blood was soaking through her uniform. Not arterial, not immediately fatal, but enough to matter. Footsteps behind her. Close. Getting closer. She forced herself to roll, hand scrabbling for the sidearm on her hip. Standard issue Beretta M9, loaded, chambered, ready. The enemy fighter came around the boulder at a dead run, rifle rising to firing position. Ava shot him 3 times before conscious thought caught up. He dropped 2 feet away, close enough that she could see the surprise frozen on his face. She'd killed him. Up close. Personal. Not through a scope, but with her own hands and a pistol that felt like a toy. The shaking started then. Uncontrollable tremors that made her teeth chatter. Morales! Reeves materialized out of nowhere, rifle up, scanning for threats. He saw the body, saw her, and his expression shifted through calculations she couldn't read. You hit? He asked. Leg, not bad, I think. He knelt, examining the wound with professional efficiency. Through and through, missed the major vessels. You're lucky. He pulled out a pressure bandage, working fast. This'll hold until we get to extraction. The rifle I had dropped, I got it. He gestured to where another operator, she thought his name was Jackson, had retrieved Park's weapon. Weapons secure. Now move. We're not stopping for stragglers. He hauled her up with one hand, supporting her weight like she weighed nothing. They moved together in a shuffling run toward Phantom's position. The team had formed a defensive perimeter in a natural depression, weapons oriented outward. Kane saw them coming and gestured them in. Casualties? Morales took a hit, not critical. Reeves deposited her near where Diaz was working on the other wounded. She dropped 9 confirmed before displacing, maybe more. Kane's eyebrows rose fractionally. 9. Maybe more, Reeves repeated. She suppressed an entire QRF element single-handedly. The lieutenant studied her with new intensity. How many rounds do you have left? Ava checked the magazine she'd grabbed. 12, sir. Not enough for sustained engagement. He turned to his team. Ammunition status across the board? The answers that came back were grim. 40% remaining. 30. 25. They'd burned through combat load, keeping the enemy at bay. We have 5 clicks to extraction point, Kane said. Enemy force is regrouping but hasn't committed to pursuit yet. We move fast, we move quiet. We might make it before they reorganize. He looked at each operator in turn. Wounded are priority. Diaz, you're on Park. Jackson, you take Martinez. Chen, you've got Morales. Sir, I can walk, Ava protested. Not fast enough. Chen carries you. That's an order. Private Chen, the signals specialist who'd warned her to stay invisible a lifetime ago, appeared at her side with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Heard you've been busy, he said. Something like that. Well, congratulations. You're officially not invisible anymore. He crouched so she could climb onto his back. Ready? She wrapped her arms around his shoulders, feeling the tactical vest's hard plates, the weight of his equipment. This is insane. Welcome to Phantom Team. Insane is the baseline. Kane's voice cut through. Move out. Combat intervals. Weapons tight unless we're compromised. Go. They moved through the darkness like ghosts, the wounded being carried. everyone else maintaining defensive formation. Ava clung to Chen's back, her rifle now, somehow, secured across her chest, eyes scanning the shadows for threats. The valley was eerily quiet after the chaos of combat. Just wind and footsteps and labored breathing. Somewhere behind them, the enemy was regrouping. Somewhere ahead, extraction waited, if they lived that long. "You doing okay back there?" Chen whispered. "Yeah, you?" "Oh, I'm fantastic. Just carrying a supply runner who turned into Rambo through hostile territory. Living the dream." Despite everything, she almost laughed. "I didn't turn into anything. I just did what needed doing." "Yeah, well, what needed doing included some of the best shooting anyone's seen outside a park. Word's already spreading." He adjusted her weight, not breaking stride. "You know what happens when someone like you does something like that?" "What?" "Everything changes. You can't go back to being nobody, not after this." The words settled into her chest like stones. She didn't want to go back to being nobody. But becoming somebody in this world meant accepting violence, accepting death, accepting that she'd killed 4 people today, maybe more, and would probably kill more before this was over. Could she live with that? Did she have a choice? "Movement, 3 o'clock, someone whispered over the radio. The formation froze. Ava's hand found her sidearm automatically, muscle memory overriding thought. Through the darkness, figures emerged. Not enemy, too organized, too disciplined. American uniforms. Friendly forces. "Phantom Team, this is Guardian 6. We're your extraction element. Fall in on us." The relief that washed through the group was almost physical. Kane moved forward to coordinate with the new element's commander, while the rest of Phantom maintained security. Ava watched from Chen's back, feeling the adrenaline drain leaving only exhaustion. They'd made it. Against odds that shouldn't have permitted survival, they'd made it. "Morales," Kane's voice pulled her back to the present. "You're riding in the medical vehicle with the critical casualties. Get that leg properly treated." "Sir, I can—" "That wasn't a request, Private. You've done enough for one night." His expression softened fractionally. "More than enough. Now let the professionals handle the rest." She dismounted from Chen's back, legs screaming protest, and limped toward the armored medical vehicle where Park and the other critical wounded were being loaded. Diaz helped her aboard, immediately going to work on her leg with proper medical supplies. "This'll sting," he warned before cleaning the wound. It did. She bit down on a grunt, hands gripping the bench. "You did good tonight," Diaz said, not looking up from his work. "Impossibly good." People are going to have questions about that. Questions? How a supply runner with no combat experience makes shots that trained snipers miss. How you kept your head when everyone expected you to break. He met her eyes. How you became what we needed exactly when we needed it. I don't know how to answer those questions. Yeah. He returned to bandaging. That's going to be a problem. The vehicle's engine rumbled to life. Through the open back hatch, Ava could see Phantom Team loading into other vehicles, exhausted but alive. Reeves caught her looking and nodded once. Acknowledgement or respect, she couldn't tell. Then the hatch closed, and they were moving, leaving the valley and its dead behind. Ava leaned back against the metal wall, feeling every bruise, every cut, every ache. Park lay unconscious across from her, hooked to monitors that beeped with reassuring regularity. The other wounded were stable. Sleeping or unconscious, didn't matter which. She'd saved them, all of them, and in doing so, she'd destroyed the invisible life she'd built. "Hey," Diaz's voice was soft. "You okay?" Was she? She'd killed people tonight, had taken lives with precision and purpose, had become exactly the kind of operator she'd always wanted to be, and discovered it tasted like blood and regret. "Ask me tomorrow," she said finally. "Fair enough." He finished the bandage, securing it with military precision. "But for what it's worth, you saved a lot of lives tonight, including mine. That matters more than whatever comes next." The vehicle hit a bump, jostling everyone. Someone groaned in their sleep. Ava closed her eyes, but all she saw was the enemy sniper dropping through her scope, the fighter she'd killed at close range, the faces of people who died because she'd pulled a trigger. Tomorrow, there would be debriefings. Questions. Consequences for disobeying orders, for commandeering equipment, for inserting herself into combat operations without authorization. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, in the darkness of an armored vehicle carrying the wounded towards safety, Eva Morales allowed herself one small truth. She wasn't invisible anymore. And despite the cost, despite the fear, despite everything that came next, she didn't want to be. The base looked different through eyes that had seen death up close. Ava limped off the medical transport at 0630 hours, leg freshly stitched and wrapped, body held together by painkillers and stubbornness. Dawn was breaking over the desert, painting everything in shades of amber and blood. Soldiers moved through morning routines that felt surreal in their normalcy. Coffee, PT, equipment checks, like the world hadn't fundamentally shifted overnight. But it had. She could see it in the stares that followed her across the tarmac, hear it in the whispers that cut off when she got too close. The supply runner who'd gone to war and come back covered in other people's blood. The ghost who'd become a killer. Morales. She turned. A military police sergeant stood waiting, expression professionally neutral. Behind him, 2 MPs flanked the entrance to the command building. You're to report to Lieutenant Colonel Morrison immediately. He's been waiting. Not a request. Never a request in this world. Understood. The walk to Morrison's office felt like an execution march. Every step echoed in hallways that suddenly felt too narrow, too close. Soldiers she'd served alongside for months looked away as she passed. Some with awe, others with something that looked like fear. The MPs stationed outside Morrison's door didn't meet her eyes as they waved her through. Inside, Morrison sat behind a desk buried in reports and incident summaries. He looked like he'd aged a decade overnight, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight with the kind of tension that came from making impossible decisions and living with their consequences. He didn't look up when she entered, just gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. She did, back straight despite exhaustion, hands folded in her lap like she was facing a review board, which, she supposed, she was. Morrison finally raised his eyes. Do you have any idea what you've done, Private Morales? Sir, That was rhetorical. He slid a folder across the desk. This is the preliminary after-action report from last night's operation. 12 pages. You feature prominently in 11 of them. She didn't reach for the folder. You disobeyed direct orders, commandeered military equipment, inserted yourself into an active combat zone without authorization or training. Each word was clipped, precise. You committed approximately 17 violations of military code, any one of which could result in court-martial and dishonorable discharge. The silence that followed felt like waiting for a guillotine blade to drop. Then Morrison leaned back and something shifted in his expression. You also saved the lives of every member of Phantom Team, made shots that shouldn't have been possible, displayed tactical awareness and combat effectiveness that defied every assessment we had of your capabilities. He opened another folder, this one thicker, marked with security classifications. 9 confirmed kills, possibly 11, we're still assessing. Suppression of an enemy. Quick reaction force element. Successful counter-sniper operation against a target 800 meters distant using an unfamiliar weapon system. He looked up. Lieutenant Kane called it the finest piece of individual marksmanship he's witnessed in 20 years of combat operations. Ava's throat was dry. Sir, I just did what needed to be done. Yes, that's in every statement. Morrison's fingers drummed the desk. Which brings us to the uncomfortable question everyone's asking. How? Sir? How does a supply runner with no combat experience, no sniper training, no business being anywhere near that operation, how does she perform at a level that exceeds some of our most elite operators? The question hung in the air like smoke. I qualified expert marksman in basics, sir. I've always been good with rifles, and I watched, learned. Park used to practice on the range during downtime. I observed his technique, his breathing patterns, You observed. Morrison's tone was flat. And from observation alone, you develop skills that take years to master? I don't know, sir. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it wasn't luck, Private. Luck doesn't produce shot groups like the ones you delivered. He slid a ballistics report across the desk. This is an analysis of the rounds we recovered from your confirmed kills. Consistent point of aim, proper wind compensation. Elevation adjustments that indicate understanding of long-range shooting dynamics. He leaned forward, eyes boring into hers. So I'll ask again, how? The walls felt like they were closing in. What did he want? Confession of some secret training program? Admission of what? Being better than anyone expected? Sir, I don't have an answer that will satisfy you. I saw the shot. I made the shot. That's all I know. Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then he closed both folders. You're being reassigned effective immediately. No longer supply duty. Command wants you evaluated for advanced marksmanship training, full psychological assessment, complete skills review. His expression was unreadable. They want to know what you are, Morales. And frankly, so do I. What I am, sir? A statistical anomaly, a liability, or possibly, he paused, an asset we didn't know we had. Before she could respond, the office door burst open. Reeves stood in the doorway, still in combat fatigues, face smudged with dirt and exhaustion. Behind him, an MP sergeant looked apologetic. Sir, I tried to stop him. It's fine. Morrison waved the MP away. Sergeant Reeves, I assume there's a reason for this interruption? Yes, sir. Reeves's eyes flicked to Ava, then back to Morrison. You need to see this. Now. Morrison's expression darkened. See what? Enemy intercepted communications. Intelligence just finished translation. Reeves stepped fully into the office, dropping a tablet on the desk. They knew, sir. They knew about Phantom's insertion. Times, routes, objectives. This wasn't opportunistic engagement. It was a coordinated ambush. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Morrison snatched up the tablet, scanning the contents. His face went from pale to ashen. How far up does this go? Unknown, sir, but the leak had access to operational planning. That's not low-level intelligence. Jesus Christ. Morrison set the tablet down like it was radioactive. We have a mole. Ava felt her stomach drop. A mole. Someone on base feeding information to the enemy. Someone who'd sent Phantom Team into a trap designed to kill them all. Morrison's eyes shifted back to her. Private Morales, you're dismissed. Return to your quarters and await further. Sir, with respect. Reeves hadn't moved. She should stay. Sergeant, this is classified. She was there. She saw the enemy disposition. And more importantly, Reeves met Morrison's stare without flinching. She's the only person on this base we know for certain isn't the leak. The logic was brutal and perfect. Morrison's jaw worked. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but this conversation stays in this room. Understood? Yes, sir, they answered in unison. Morrison pulled up a map on his computer, gesturing for them to gather around. The enemy knew our insertion point, our timeline, and our objective. They positioned forces in a kill box designed to maximize casualties while appearing like standard defensive positioning. Which means they had at least 24 hours notice, Reeves said. Time to move troops, set the trap, coordinate with their sniper element. The operational brief went out to select personnel 48 hours ago. Morrison pulled up a list of names. 16 people had access to complete mission details. Any one of them could be our leak. Ava scanned the names. Officers, senior NCOs, intelligence specialists, people with decades of service and security clearances that had been vetted 6 ways from Sunday. What about external access, she asked. Could someone have hacked the servers? Both men looked at her. Our systems are air-gapped and encrypted, Morrison said. Hacking from outside the wire is effectively impossible. Which means it's internal. Reeves's voice was granite. Someone we trust. Someone who's been with us long enough to have access. The implications sat heavy in the silence. I'm putting together a task force, Morrison said. Limited personnel. Need-to-know basis. We investigate quietly, carefully, until we identify the leak. He looked at Reeves. I want you on it. Yes, sir? And I want her. Morrison nodded toward Ava. The words hit like a physical blow. Sir? Ava's voice came out smaller than intended. I'm not qualified for counterintelligence work. You're the variable no one expected, Morrison interrupted. The person who wasn't supposed to be there, which means you saw things the leak didn't account for. Observed details others missed because they assumed you didn't matter. He pulled up reconnaissance photos from the valley, Pre-mission satellite imagery. Tell me what you saw. Enemy positions, force composition, anything that seemed off. Ava stared at the images, memory flooding back. The chaos, the fear, the scope view of their sniper, she said suddenly. He was good. Too good for militia. Military training, professional equipment, and he wasn't alone. Explain. When I took him down, I saw his position through the scope. Custom rifle, range-finding equipment, radio gear that looked American-made. She pointed to a ridge on the satellite photo. And there was another position, here. Abandoned, but recently used. Cigarette butts, brass casings. They had at least 2 counter-sniper teams positioned to interlock fields of fire. Reeves leaned closer, examining where she indicated. That's advanced tactical planning, not something you see from local insurgents. No, Morrison agreed. It's not. He looked at Ava with new intensity. What else? She closed her eyes, forcing herself back into the valley. The smell of cordite and dust, the sound of gunfire, the scope view showing their quick reaction force moved in tactical formation, bounded overwatch, fire and maneuver. They had comms discipline. I never heard them on enemy frequencies we were monitoring. And their equipment? She opened her eyes. It was too clean, too new. These weren't fighters scraping by with old Soviet surplus. These were professionals with recent supply chains. The room went quiet. Foreign advisors, Reeves said. Or worse, foreign combatants operating directly. Morrison's expression could have frozen helium. If that's confirmed, we're not just dealing with a local insurgency. We're looking at organized opposition with significant backing. And someone on this base told them we were coming, Reeves added. The door opened again. This time it was Kane, moving with the controlled urgency of someone delivering critical intelligence. Sir, we've got a problem. Eve, another one? Intelligence intercepted enemy communications referencing a follow-up operation. Kane's face was grim. They're planning a major assault on this base within 72 hours. Battalion strength, coordinated attack on multiple vectors. Morrison stood so fast his chair hit the wall. How reliable is this intelligence? Very. It comes from the same source that confirmed the information leak. Kane's eyes flicked to Ava, recognition passing across his features. They think we're wounded, demoralized, vulnerable after last night. They're not entirely wrong, Morrison said. We took casualties, used significant ammunition. Our defensive posture is compromised. Which is why we need to hit them first, Reeves said. With what forces? Phantom Team is barely operational. The QRF is spread thin covering base security. We don't have the manpower for offensive operations. Then we use what we have. Kane moved to the map, gesturing to terrain features. Small team, surgical strike. Take out their command element before they can coordinate the assault. You're talking about a suicide mission. I'm talking about the only option that doesn't end with us being overrun. Kane's voice was hard. We know where they're staging. We know their timeline. We hit them hard and fast before they're ready. Morrison looked between his officers, the weight of command crushing down on his shoulders. Then his eyes landed on Ava. Private Morales, you've been unusually quiet. She hadn't expected to be asked for input, wasn't sure she had anything worth contributing. But 3 sets of eyes were waiting. If you hit their command, you need to take out their sniper teams first, she said. Otherwise, you're walking into the same trap that almost killed Phantom last night. We don't have our own sniper, Kane said. Park's in surgery. Won't be operational for weeks. The implication hung in the air like an unexploded bomb. No, Morrison said. Absolutely not. Sir. She's had 1 night of combat. 1. You want to put her back in the field against professional enemy snipers? I want to use the asset we have instead of wishing for the one we don't, Kane shot back. She proved herself last night. 9 confirmed kills, suppression of an enemy element. She can do this. Or she can die. She got lucky once. It wasn't luck. Reeves's voice cut through the argument. I watched her shoot. Watched her read wind, compensate for distance, make adjustments on the fly. That wasn't luck, sir. That was skill we didn't know existed. Morrison turned to Ava. Is that true? You think you can do this? Every rational part of her brain screamed no. She'd barely survived last night, had spent the ride back shaking with adrenaline crash and delayed trauma. The thought of going back out there, facing professional enemy snipers, who'd be looking for her specifically, but Phantom Team was counting on her. The base was counting on her. And somewhere in the valley were people who'd tried to kill her friends. "I can do it, sir." "You're certain?" "No, sir, but I'll do it anyway." Morrison looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he turned to Kane. "If I authorize this insanity, what's the plan?" Kane pulled up tactical maps, already shifting into operational planning mode. 6-person team. Morales provides overwatch and counter-sniper capability. Reeves leads the assault element. We insert at 2300 hours, hit their staging area at midnight, extract before dawn. 36 hours from now. We can't plan, rehearse, and execute a mission of this complexity. "We don't have a choice, sir. If we wait, they hit us first. This is our window." The silence stretched. Ava could hear her own heartbeat, feel the weight of what was being decided. Finally, Morrison nodded. "Do it. But if this goes sideways—" "It won't," Kane said with absolute certainty. "It better not. Because if we lose another team, this base becomes indefensible." Morrison's eyes locked onto Ava. "And Private Morales? If you're going to do this, you do it right. No more learning on the job. You get proper instruction, starting now." "Sir?" "Sergeant Reeves, take her to the range. She has 36 hours to transform from lucky amateur to functional sniper." His expression was iron. "Make it count." The range was empty when they arrived. Just Ava, Reeves, and Park's rifle stretched between them like a challenge. "You know what you're committing to?" Reeves asked, setting up targets at various distances. "Shooting people from very far away?" "Becoming a weapon." He turned to face her. "Last night was chaos, fear and adrenaline and desperation. This is different. This is choosing to step into that role permanently. Once you do, there's no going back to being the supply runner." I don't want to go back." "Be certain, because what I'm about to teach you will change how you see the world. Every person becomes a target assessment, every window a firing position, every distance a calculation of lethality." His eyes were hard. "It's not heroic, it's not glorious. It's math and patience and the absolute certainty that when you pull that trigger, someone dies." Ava met his stare. "I've already killed people." "In combat, under fire. That's different from what we're about to practice." "How?" "Because this is cold, calculated. You'll have time to think, to see their faces in the scope, to know that you're about to end their existence with nothing but pressure from your finger." He paused. "Can you live with that?" She thought about Park, unconscious in the medical bay, about Phantom Team, willing to die for a mission someone had betrayed, about the enemy sniper who'd been seconds from killing her. "Teach me," she said. Reeves smiled, a cold, predatory expression. "Range is 600 meters. Put 5 rounds center mass." She settled into position, feeling the rifle's weight, the scope's familiar pressure against her eye. The target downrange looked impossibly small, a silhouette barely visible against the berms. "Breathe, settle, compensate. Fire." The round punched through the target's upper chest, not center mass. Close, but not perfect. "Again." She adjusted, fired. Better, still not perfect. Again. 5 rounds. 4 center mass, 1 slightly high. Reeves walked downrange to check the target, then returned with an expression she couldn't read. "Your grouping is tight, sub-MOA at 600 meters. That's professional-grade accuracy." He set the target down. "But you're thinking too much, calculating when you should be feeling." "I thought sniping was all math." "Math gets you close, instinct gets you kills." He pointed to the wind flags rippling along the range. "What's the wind doing?" 5 to 7 knots left to right. "Wrong. It's gusting, variable. Watch the flags at different distances. See how they're not synchronized? That's wind shear. Different speeds at different altitudes." She looked again, seeing what she'd missed. The near flag barely moving, the far flag whipping, the middle somewhere between. "How do you compensate for that?" "You don't. You wait. Watch for the lull, the moment when all the flags align. Then you shoot fast before conditions change." He settled into position beside her. Like this. He waited, utterly still, breathing so shallow it looked like he wasn't breathing at all. Then he fired, One smooth motion, no hesitation. Downrange, the target gained a new hole. Dead center. Feel the rhythm of the environment, he said. Wind, heat mirage, even your own heartbeat. Everything cycles. Your job is to find the moment between cycles when everything aligns. She tried again, this time watching the flags, waiting, feeling for the pause. When it came, she fired. Center mass. Better. Reeves stood, moving to the rifle case. Now we work on rapid target acquisition. The next hour was brutal. Targets appearing at random distances, random positions. She had to find them in the scope, range them, adjust, and fire before they disappeared. Her shoulder ached from recoil. Her eyes burned from scope focus. But her shots got faster, more consistent. Time, Reeves called. 15 targets, 12 hits. Not bad for someone who learned this yesterday. Not good enough if I'm facing professionals. No, he agreed. It's not. Which is why we're going to spend the next 30 hours pushing you past your limits. He wasn't exaggerating. They worked through the afternoon heat, through dusk, into darkness. Night shooting with infrared scopes. Moving targets. Targets partially concealed behind cover. Extreme range shots that required accounting for Earth's rotation. At some point, food appeared. Someone brought it. She didn't see who. At another point, she must have slept because she woke up with her face pressed against sandbags, Reeves shaking her shoulder. Up. We're not done. More shooting. More adjustments. Her hands moved automatically now, finding the rhythm Reeves had described. The moment between moments when everything aligned. You're getting it, he said during a brief water break. Starting to trust your instinct instead of fighting it. Feels like I'm guessing. At this level, there's no difference. The calculations are too complex for conscious thought. Your subconscious processes variables faster than your rational mind ever could. He gestured to the rifle. The weapon is just a tool. You're the real weapon, and you're learning to trust yourself. 24 hours before mission launch, Kane appeared at the range with 3 other operators, the assault element that would accompany them. How's she doing? He asked Reeves. She'll do. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. It's the truth. Reeves turned to Ava. Show him. 1,200 meters. That boulder next to the old bunker. She could barely see the boulder through the scope. Heat distortion made it waver like a mirage. Wind was unpredictable. The distance was beyond anything she'd attempted. She settled into position anyway. Watched. Waited. Felt for the moment. Fired. The bullet took 3 full seconds to arrive, an eternity compressed into the space between heartbeats. When the dust cleared, the boulder showed a fresh impact crater. Kane's eyebrows rose. Jesus Christ. She's ready, Reeves said simply. Ready to get killed, maybe. This mission's going to put her against enemy snipers who've been doing this for years. And she's been doing it for 2 days, which means they'll underestimate her. Same mistake everyone else made. Reeves looked at Ava. Right? She thought about Morrison's question, about how a supply runner had become what Phantom Team needed, about the impossible shots and the kills that shouldn't have happened. They'll think I'm lucky, she said. They'll think I'm a fluke, and they'll die thinking it. Kane studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Welcome to Phantom Team, Morales. Try not to die on your first official mission. The briefing happened at 1800 hours. 6 operators in a sealed room, no windows, no recording devices. Just tactical maps and the weight of what they were about to attempt. Kane stood at the head of the table. Mission is simple. Enemy command is staging at a compound 15 clicks northwest. Intel says they're consolidating forces for their planned assault on our position. We disrupt that assault by removing their leadership. He pulled up satellite imagery showing a cluster of buildings surrounded by defensive positions. Primary target is their commander, codename Viper. Secondary targets are his staff officers. Tertiary is general chaos and destruction of combat capability. He pointed to elevated positions around the compound. They'll have sniper overwatch, at least 2 teams, possibly 3. Our success depends on neutralizing those snipers before we're detected. All eyes turned to Ava. Morales, you'll position here. Kane indicated a ridgeline 800 meters from the compound. Gives you sight lines on their primary sniper positions while staying outside their effective range. You take them down, we go in. Simple. Nothing about this was simple. Expected enemy strength? one of the assault operators asked. 30 to 40 combatants, maybe more if they've received reinforcements. Kane's expression was grim. We'll be outnumbered 5 to 1, which is why speed and violence of action are critical. We hit hard, fast, and we're gone before they can organize a response. And if things go sideways, then we adapt. This team survived worse odds. He looked at each operator in turn. Questions? Ava raised her hand. What if there are more snipers than we expect? If I'm engaged with one target and another has sight on the assault team, then you make a choice, Kane said bluntly. Protect yourself or protect the team. There's no right answer, just the one you can live with. The weight of that settled into her chest. Anything else? Kane waited. Silence. Good. We insert at 2300 hours. Check your equipment. Get rest if you can. And remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting to protect everyone on this base who's counting on us to stop what's coming. The operators filed out, leaving Ava alone with Kane. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. I can request Park's backup sniper. He's not as good, but he's trained for this. I'm doing this. Why? And don't give me the duty speech. I want the real reason. She thought about it. About the valley and the impossible shot. About being invisible for 6 months and then suddenly mattering. About the look in Park's eyes when he'd acknowledged her existence. Because I'm tired of being what people expect, she said finally. Supply runner, support personnel, invisible. I'm tired of small. I want to matter. Careful what you wish for. Mattering gets people killed. Then I'll die mattering instead of living invisible. Kane's expression shifted, something almost like respect. Reeves thinks you're going to be the best sniper this unit's ever seen, you know that? He said that? In his way, which for Reeves is basically a declaration of love. Kane moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I think he's right. You've got something none of us saw coming. Use it, and try to come back alive. He left her standing in the empty briefing room, surrounded by maps of the place where she might die. The smart move would be fear. Backing out. Finding some excuse to let someone else take the risk. But Ava was done with smart moves. She was done with invisible. And tomorrow night, in the darkness of hostile territory, she'd prove it, or die trying. The rifle waited in the armory, cleaned and zeroed, ready for violence, just like her. The helicopter's rotors cut through darkness like invisible blades, the vibration settling into Ava's bones as the desert scrolled past below. 2,300 hours. Insertion in 7 minutes. Her hands rested on Park's rifle. Her rifle now, somehow. Checking and rechecking equipment that had already been checked a dozen times. Across from her, Reeves sat motionless, eyes closed, breathing controlled. The calm before violence. Beside him, Kane reviewed the tactical display one last time, lips moving silently as he ran through contingencies. The other 3 operators, Jackson, Chen, and a demolitions expert named Torres, were equally still. Warriors waiting for war. 2 minutes! The pilot's voice crackled through their headsets. Ava's stomach dropped as the helicopter banked hard, losing altitude fast. Through the open door, she could see the target area emerging from darkness. A compound of low buildings clustered around a central courtyard, surrounded by defensive positions and vehicle revetments. Somewhere in that darkness were enemy snipers waiting to kill her. 30 seconds. Get ready. The team moved as one, checking weapons, adjusting gear. Ava chambered around, feeling the mechanical certainty of metal sliding into place. You good? Reeves asked over the comm. Yeah. A line? Yeah. He smiled, barely visible in the red light of the cabin. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just don't let it freeze you. The helicopter flared, touching down light as a feather. The side door was already open, operators flowing out into the desert night with practiced efficiency. Ava followed, boots hitting sand, immediately moving to establish security while the helicopter lifted off in a storm of rotor wash and blown dust. Then silence. Complete and absolute. They were alone in enemy territory, 15 clicks from friendly forces, outnumbered and outgunned. The smart move would have been terror. Instead, Ava felt something else. Focus. Clarity. The same cold certainty that had taken over when she'd made that first impossible shot. Move, Kane whispered. They advanced in tactical formation, night vision turning the world into shades of green and gray. Ava moved near the rear, rifle ready, scanning for threats while the assault element cleared the approach vector. The ridgeline that would be her sniper position rose ahead, a rocky outcropping with clear sight lines to the compound and its defensive positions. 800 meters, perfect range, perfectly exposed. "Overwatch, this is your stop," Kane said. "Set up and confirm ready." Ava peeled off from the main element, moving low and slow toward the ridgeline. Every rock could hide an enemy. Every shadow could conceal death. Her heart hammered, but her hands stayed steady. She reached the position and settled in, extending the rifle's bipod, adjusting the scope. Through the optics, the compound materialized in sharp detail. Guard posts, patrol routes, and there, elevated positions on two buildings that had perfect overwatch of the compound approaches. Sniper nests. "Overwatch set," she whispered into her comm. "I have eyes on two enemy sniper positions, northeast corner and southwest rooftop." "Can you engage both?" Kane asked. She studied the angles, the distances, the time it would take to transition between targets. "First shot will alert the second. I'll have maybe 10 seconds before he goes to ground. Then make the first one count. Stand by." Ava centered the crosshairs on the northeast position. Through the scope, she could see movement, just a shadow shifting behind sandbags. Human. Target. Soon to be dead. Her finger rested on the trigger, applying just enough pressure to feel the breakpoint without crossing it. Waiting. "All elements in position," Kane's voice came through. "Overwatch, you are cleared to engage on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." She fired. The rifle's recoil was familiar now, almost comforting. Through the scope, she saw the target drop. Clean hit, no movement. She swung the rifle left, finding the second position. The enemy sniper was already moving, alerted by her shot, disappearing behind cover. "Damn!" "First target down," she reported. "Second displaced. I've lost visual." "Keep looking. We're going in." Below, the assault element broke from concealment, moving fast toward the compound perimeter. Explosive charges detonated on the main gate with a flash that burned her night vision. Gunfire erupted, controlled bursts from Phantom Team, panicked sprays from surprised guards. And somewhere in that chaos, an enemy sniper was hunting her. Ava scanned the compound through her scope, searching for the displaced target. The southwest rooftop was empty. Other positions showed no movement. Where had he... The bullet struck 6 inches left of her head, the crack of its passage followed instantly by the distant report of the shot. There. She'd seen the muzzle flash, brief, barely visible, from a position she hadn't identified during her initial scan. A water tower 300 meters past the compound, elevated, with perfect sightlines to her position. Professional. He'd anticipated where she'd set up and prepared a counter position. Another round impacted closer. He was ranging her, walking his shots in. "Overwatch taking effective fire," she said into the comm, already displacing. "Enemy sniper, grid reference, November 824. "Confirmed," Reeves responded. "Can you suppress?" "Can you suppress?" Military speak for, "Can you keep him from killing us while we complete the mission?" Ava found new cover 20 meters from her original position, settling in fast. Through the scope, the water tower showed no movement. He'd gone to ground after revealing his position, waiting for her to make a mistake. This was the duel Reeves had described. Not chaos, not desperation. Cold, calculated patience. Whoever moved first, died first. She controlled her breathing, slowing her heart rate, becoming as still as the rocks around her. The compound assault continued below. Explosions, gunfire, shouted orders. But her world had contracted to a single point, the water tower and the man hiding there who wanted her dead. Seconds stretched. Minutes. Her muscles screamed for movement, but she remained frozen, eye pressed to the scope, waiting. Then, there. A shadow shifted, just a fraction. The enemy sniper adjusting position, probably trying to reacquire her after she'd displaced. Ava centered the crosshairs where she estimated his torso would be, compensated for the angle, and fired 3 rapid shots in a triangle pattern. One of them found flesh. Through the scope, she saw the figure slump, weapon clattering down the water tower's external ladder. "Second sniper down," she reported. "Compound is clear for assault." "Copy that. Good shooting." But she wasn't done. Movement on the compound's eastern perimeter, reinforcements arriving, at least a dozen fighters moving in tactical formation. If they reached the compound while Phantom was inside... Assault element, you have enemy QRF approaching from the east. 12 to 15 personnel, combat loaded. Shit. Kane's voice was tight. Overwatch, can you slow them down? Working on it. She shifted targets, finding the lead element of the reinforcement column. They were moving in bounds, professional tactics, proper spacing, not militia, trained soldiers. She fired into the lead group, dropping 2 before they scattered into cover. Adjusted, fired again. Another hit. The column's advance stopped as they tried to locate her position. But they had numbers, and while she kept them pinned, more were probably moving to flank. Assault element, you need to move. Now! 30 seconds. We've got eyes on Viper. 30 seconds. A lifetime in combat. Ava kept firing, forcing the enemy reinforcements to stay down, burning through ammunition she couldn't spare. Her shoulder was a mass of bruises from the rifle's recoil. Her trigger finger cramped, but she didn't stop. An explosion lit up the compound's central building. Torres's demolition charge. The structure collapsed in on itself, flames reaching toward the night sky. Target eliminated, Kane reported. All elements, extract, now! The assault team burst from the compound at a dead run, moving toward the exfiltration point where their helicopter would pick them up. Behind them, the enemy compound was chaos, fires, casualties, complete confusion. But the reinforcements weren't confused. They'd identified Phantom's withdrawal route and were moving to intercept. Assault element, the QRF is trying to cut you off. Recommend you go north, use the Wadi for cover. Negative, Kane shot back. That adds 15 minutes to our timeline. We don't have 15 minutes. Then you need suppressing fire on that QRF, or they'll pin you down. Overwatch, you can't suppress 15 hostiles alone. Watch me. She shifted position again, moving to a rocky outcrop that gave her angles on the enemy reinforcements' likely path. Through the scope, they appeared, moving fast, weapons ready, determined to stop Phantom's escape. Ava started firing. Not aimed shots, rapid suppression. Keep their heads down, force them to take cover, buy Phantom the seconds they needed to break contact. Her world became fire and recoil and the mechanical rhythm of bolt action. Chamber round, acquire target, fire, repeat. Her hands moved automatically, muscle memory taking over when conscious thought was too slow. Overwatch, displacement in 10 seconds or you're going to be overrun, Reeves warned. She could see them coming, enemy fighters who'd identified her position, moving to flank. Smart, coordinated, deadly. Acknowledged, The explosion was so close it felt like the earth itself was attacking her. Dirt and rocks showered down. Her ears rang with a high-pitched whine that drowned out everything else. Mortar round. They had mortars. Another explosion. Closer. They were walking rounds onto her position with practiced efficiency. Time to go. Ava grabbed the rifle and ran, legs pumping, lungs burning, while explosions chased her across the ridgeline. Shrapnel buzzed past like angry hornets. The ground heaved and bucked under her feet. She dove into a depression between rocks as another round detonated where she'd been standing seconds before. Overwatch is displaced and under mortar fire, she gasped into the comm. Cannot maintain suppression. Fall back to exfil point, Kane ordered. We're almost clear. Almost wasn't good enough. Through gaps in the rocks, she could see the enemy QRF had recovered from her suppression and was pursuing Phantom Team. In minutes, they'd have the assault element in a crossfire. Unless... Ava studied the terrain through her scope. The enemy was using a narrow valley approach. Good cover, concealment, speed. Also, a fatal funnel if someone was above them. She scrambled up the rocks, finding a position that overlooked the valley. The enemy was 300 meters out and closing fast. Assault element, when they hit the valley choke point, go to ground and cover your heads. What? Why? Just do it. She centered her scope on the lead vehicle in the enemy column, a technical truck with a heavy machine gun mounted in the bed, not aiming for personnel, aiming for the fuel tank. One shot. The tank ruptured, spilling gasoline that ignited instantly from the hot exhaust. The flames spread to the ammunition the truck was carrying. The explosion was spectacular. The technical disintegrated in a fireball that engulfed the vehicles behind it. Secondary explosions rippled through the column as ammunition cooked off. The narrow valley became a death trap, flames blocking the only approach route. "Holy shit," someone breathed over the comm. "Move," Ava shouted. "That won't stop them for long." But it stopped them long enough. The helicopter appeared overhead, fast roping down to extract Phantom Team, while Ava provided overwatch from her elevated position. She counted them aboard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All present, all alive. "Overwatch, you are last pickup. Move to exfil." She ran down the slope, legs threatening to give out, rifle clutched to her chest. The helicopter hovered 30 feet ahead, door gunner laying down covering fire while the enemy regrouped. Reeves leaned out, hand extended. "Come on!" She leaped, caught his hand, felt herself yanked aboard as the helicopter lifted off. Bullets sparked off the armored hull. The door gunner returned fire in long, devastating bursts. Then they were up, climbing fast, leaving the burning compound and its dead behind. Ava collapsed against the bulkhead, every muscle trembling, lungs heaving for air that didn't taste like smoke and cordite. "You good?" Reeves asked. She couldn't speak, could only nod. Kane moved through the cabin, checking each operator. When he reached Ava, he crouched down, meeting her eyes. "That was some of the finest combat shooting I've ever witnessed," he said. "You saved this entire team. You know that?" She found her voice. "Just doing my job." "Your job is supply clerk. This?" He gestured to the rifle, the blood on her uniform, the exhaustion written across her face. "This is something else entirely." The flight back took 20 minutes. Ava spent it staring at nothing, mind replaying the mission in fragmented images. The sniper falling from the water tower, the reinforcement column burning, the mortar rounds walking toward her position. She'd killed tonight. How many? 6? 8? More? She'd stopped counting after the first few. The helicopter touched down at base just after 0200 hours. Medical personnel swarmed aboard, checking for casualties. Ava waved them off, bruised, bleeding from a dozen minor cuts, but functional. "Debrief in 30 minutes, Kane announced. "Get cleaned up. Grab food if you can. Then we talk through what happened." The team dispersed. Ava found herself walking alone toward her quarters, rifle slung across her back, feeling the stares of base personnel who'd been awakened by the helicopter's arrival. She made it 3 steps before Morrison appeared, flanked by 2 MPs. "Private Morales. With me." Not a request. She followed him to his office, suddenly aware of how she must look, covered in dirt and blood, carrying a sniper rifle like it belonged to her, walking like someone who'd just fought a war. Morrison closed the door behind them and pointed to a chair. "Sit." She did. He didn't speak immediately, just studied her with eyes that had seen too much and forgiven too little. "The mission was a success," he finally said. "Enemy commander eliminated. Staging area destroyed. Their planned assault is effectively neutralized." "That's good, sir." "It is. It also doesn't change the fact that you've now completed 2 unauthorized combat operations in 3 days. He leaned forward. "Do you have any idea how many regulations you've violated? How many protocols you've ignored?" "Sir, And do you know what makes it worse? The fact that you were right. Both times. Your actions saved lives, accomplished objectives, produced results that trained operators couldn't match." He slid a folder across the desk. "This is your personnel file. I've been reviewing it, trying to understand how someone with your record could do what you've done." Ava's throat went dry. "Sir, what does my file say?" "Standard evaluations. Competent, but unremarkable. Good with weapons, but nothing exceptional. Recommended for logistics support." He opened the file. "But there's something interesting here. A note from your basic training instructor says you showed unusual aptitude for marksmanship, but lacks the psychological profile for combat operations." "I remember that evaluation." "Do you remember what he based it on?" "He said I overthought things. Got too analytical. That I'd freeze under pressure." Morrison smiled, cold and sharp. "And yet, under the worst pressure imaginable, you performed like someone who'd been doing this for years. Why?" "I don't know, sir." "I think you do." He closed the file. "I think somewhere in your past there's something we missed. Some training, some experience, some background that explains how a supply clerk becomes an elite sniper overnight." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. "Sir, I've never had sniper training. Never been in combat before 3 days ago. Everything in my file is accurate. Then how? I watched. I learned. And when the moment came, I didn't freeze. She met his eyes. Maybe your instructor was wrong about me. Maybe. Morrison leaned back. Or maybe you're exactly what you appear to be. A statistical anomaly. Someone who shouldn't exist but does anyway. He pulled out another document. This is a personnel transfer order. Effective immediately, you're being reassigned to Phantom Team as their primary designated marksman. You'll receive full sniper training, combat pay, and a promotion to specialist. Ava's brain stuttered. Sir, You'll also be subject to extensive psychological evaluation, skills assessment, and background investigation. Command wants to understand what you are. So do I. His expression softened fractionally. But regardless of what we find, you've earned this. The question is, do you want it? Did she? 3 days ago, the answer would have been simple. Yes, absolutely. Anything to stop being invisible. But now, having seen what combat really meant, having killed people and felt the weight of their deaths, I want it, sir. Even knowing it means more missions like tonight, more killing, more watching people die? Yes, sir. Why? She thought about Park, still recovering from wounds he'd taken protecting the team, about Phantom operators who'd trusted her despite having every reason not to, about the enemy commander whose death had saved countless lives. Because someone has to do it, sir, and I can. So I will. Morrison studied her for a long moment. Then he stood, extending his hand. Welcome to Phantom Team, Specialist Morales. Try not to make me regret this. She shook his hand, feeling the weight of the moment settle into her bones. I'll do my best, sir. I know you will. That's what worries me. He gestured to the door. Dismissed. Get some rest. Your first official training session starts at 0800. She saluted and turned to leave. Morales. She paused at the door. That instructor who said you'd freeze under pressure? He was wrong about you, but he was right about one thing. What's that, sir? You do overthink things, and in this line of work, that'll either make you the best we have, he paused, or it'll get you killed. Figure out which before it's too late. The barracks were quiet when she returned. Most of the base was still asleep, blissfully unaware of the mission that had just prevented their deaths. Ava stripped off her combat gear, wincing at the bruises covering her shoulder. The rifle, still her responsibility until she turned it in, leaned against the wall like an accusation. She'd killed tonight. Multiple people. Professional soldiers who'd been doing their jobs just like she'd been doing hers. The shaking started then. Delayed adrenaline crash hitting all at once. She made it to the bathroom before her legs gave out, collapsing on the cold tile, trembling uncontrollably. Hey, you okay? Sarah Kim stood in the doorway, wearing PT gear, hair pulled back, concern written across her face. Yeah, just processing. Kim sat down beside her without asking permission. I heard about the mission. Whole base is talking about it. The supply runner who became Phantom Team's new sniper. It's not official yet. It is. Morrison posted the transfer orders 20 minutes ago. You're famous, Ava, or infamous. Haven't decided which. Ava laughed, a sound that came out more like a sob. I killed people tonight. I know. I looked through a scope and I made people stop existing. Just pressure from my finger and they were gone. Kim didn't offer platitudes. Didn't tell her it was okay or necessary or justified. Just sat there, present, solid. Does it get easier? Ava asked. I don't know. I've never killed anyone. Kim's voice was quiet. But I know people who have, and they all say the same thing. It doesn't get easier. You just get better at carrying it. How do you carry something like this? You remember why you did it, who you saved, what would have happened if you hadn't. Kim bumped her shoulder gently. And you let people help. You don't carry it alone. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the base wake up around them. Finally, Ava spoke. 3 days ago, I was invisible. Nobody. Just the supply runner everyone ignored. And now? Now I'm the sniper who saved Phantom Team. The anomaly. The person everyone's watching to see if I break. So, don't break. It's not that simple. Sure it is. Kim stood, offering her hand. You've already done the impossible twice. What's once more? Ava took her hand, letting herself be pulled up. That's terrible advice. Yeah, well, I'm signals intelligence, not a therapist. You want good advice? Talk to Diaz. He's actually trained for this. They walked back toward the sleeping area together. Other soldiers were starting to stir. Morning routines beginning, coffee brewing, the normal rhythm of military life. Normal. Like Ava would ever be normal again. For what it's worth, Kim said at the door, I'm glad you're not invisible anymore. You were always too good for that job. Just took everyone else a while to notice. She left before Ava could respond. Alone in her bunk, Ava stared at the ceiling, mind refusing to shut down despite exhaustion. Morrison's words echoed, "What are you?" She didn't have an answer, wasn't sure she wanted one. The rifle leaned against the wall, waiting, silent, patient. Tomorrow, she'd start official training. Tomorrow, she'd become what everyone now expected her to be. But tonight, in the darkness before dawn, she allowed herself one moment of doubt. One moment of wondering if becoming visible was worth the price she'd paid. The answer should have been simple. Yes. Obviously. This was everything she'd wanted, but the faces of the dead wouldn't stop appearing behind her closed eyes, and the weight of their deaths felt heavier than any rifle. She must have slept eventually, because the next thing she knew, someone was shaking her shoulder. Up, you've got 30 minutes before training. Reeves stood over her, already in full combat gear, looking like he'd never left the battlefield. What training? She mumbled. Your training. Morrison wasn't joking about 0800 start time. He tossed her a new uniform, specialist rank already attached. Get dressed. Welcome to the hardest job you'll ever love. 28 minutes later, Ava stood on the range in her new uniform, facing Reeves and two other instructors she didn't recognize. You've had 48 hours of rushed crash course training, Reeves said. You performed admirably under pressure. Now we do it properly. 6 months of intensive instruction, every aspect of snipercraft. By the time we're done, you won't just be good, you'll be exceptional. What if I can't do it? You will. Because failure isn't an option anymore. He gestured to the rifle. Pick it up. She did. Now, tell me, what is a sniper? Ava thought about the question. About the water tower and the burning compound and the faces that wouldn't leave her alone. A weapon, she said finally. Wrong. Reeves's eyes were hard. A weapon is a tool, replaceable, interchangeable. You're something more. You're a force multiplier, a psychological weapon, the ghost that makes enemies afraid to show themselves. He moved closer. A sniper isn't about the rifle, or the scope, or the ballistics. It's about the will to make impossible shots when lives depend on it. The patience to wait days for a single opportunity. The certainty that when you pull that trigger, justice is being served. Justice? Protection, prevention, stopping bad people from doing worse things. He paused. Can you live with that definition? Could she? Was that what she'd done? Protected people? Or had she just killed because she was good at it? I don't know, she admitted. Good. Uncertainty keeps you honest. Reeves gestured to the targets downrange. Now show me what you learned, and then we'll teach you everything else. Ava settled into position, feeling the rifle's familiar weight, the scope's pressure against her eye. Through the optics, the world simplified into crosshairs and distance. She fired. Center mass. Perfect hit. Again. She fired. And again. And again. Each shot was a choice. Each choice was a commitment to the person she was becoming. The supply runner was gone, buried under bruises and blood and the weight of necessary violence. In her place stood Specialist Ava Morales. Sniper. Phantom team. Visible. Valued. Dangerous. And despite everything, despite the doubt and the fear and the faces that wouldn't stop haunting her, she was exactly where she needed to be. The targets fell like promises, like futures secured, like lives saved by the willingness to take others. Reeves watched in silence, arms crossed, expression unreadable. When the magazine ran dry, he finally spoke. You'll do. 2 words. But coming from him, they meant everything. The training had only just begun. The real war was still ahead. And somewhere out there, enemies she hadn't met yet were planning violence she'd have to stop. But for now, in the morning light, with the rifle still warm in her hands, Ava allowed herself something she hadn't felt in 3 days. Hope. Not for safety, Not for peace, but for purpose. For mattering. For being the weapon her people needed when darkness came calling. The scope's reticle wavered slightly in the heat. She steadied it. Ready. The scope's reticle held steady against the target, but Ava's mind was already moving past it, calculating wind, distance, the next shot, the next mission. Ready. The word echoed in her head like a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. "Range is clear," Reeves called. "Let's talk." She lowered the rifle, turning to find him studying her with that unreadable expression he wore like armor. "You shot well today," he said. "Better than yesterday. Better than you should after 3 days in minimal sleep." "Thank you, Sergeant." That wasn't a compliment, it was an observation. He gestured for her to follow, walking toward the equipment shed. "You're adapting too fast, learning too quickly. It's making people nervous." "People like who?" "Command, intelligence, Morrison." He stopped, turning to face her. "They've been running background checks, deep ones, looking for something that explains you." Ava's stomach dropped. "There's nothing to find." "I know, which is why they're confused." He pulled out a tablet, showing her a classified document marked with security headers. "This is a psychological profile they commissioned, based on your combat performance, stress responses, decision-making under pressure." She scanned the document, seeing clinical language that tried to reduce her to data points and percentages. "What does it say?" "That you shouldn't exist. That the progression from supply clerk to combat effective sniper in 72 hours is statistically impossible. That either you're hiding something or you're the biggest outlier in military history." "Which do they think?" Reeves smiled, cold and sharp. "Both. They think you're an outlier and hiding something. They just can't prove it." "There's nothing to prove." "I believe you." He closed the tablet. "But belief doesn't matter in this world. Results do. And your results are forcing them to make decisions they're not ready for." "What kind of decisions?" "Whether to fast-track you through advanced training or bury you in bureaucratic review until they figure out what you are." His eyes hardened. "Whether you're an asset worth developing or a liability that needs to be contained." The words hit like physical blows. After everything she'd done, they still saw her as a problem to be solved. "What do you think I am?" she asked. "I think you're exactly what we needed when we needed it. Everything else is noise." He handed her the tablet. "But my opinion doesn't matter. Morrison wants to see you. Now, bam." Morrison's office felt different this time. Colder. More formal. 2 additional officers sat flanking his desk, a major Ava didn't recognize, and a woman in civilian clothes whose presence screamed intelligence agency. "Specialist Morales," Morrison said. "Sit." She did, hyper-aware of the 3 sets of eyes dissecting her. "This is Major Hendricks from Personnel Command and Ms. Carter from Defense Intelligence. They have questions about your recent performance." But Carter spoke first, voice smooth as silk over steel. "Specialist, your personnel file indicates no advanced marksmanship training, no combat experience prior to 4 days ago, no family history of military service. Is that accurate?" "Yes, ma'am." "And yet you've achieved combat effectiveness that typically requires years of training. How do you explain that?" "I can't, ma'am. I just did what the situation required." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Carter's eyes narrowed. "Have you ever received training from foreign military services? Private military contractors? Any organization outside official U.S. military channels?" "No, ma'am." "Have you ever been approached by foreign intelligence services? Offered compensation for information or services?" The implication was a slap. "No, ma'am. I'm not a spy." "No one's accusing you of anything," Major Hendricks interjected. "We're trying to understand how someone with your profile accomplished what you did." "Maybe my profile was wrong. Or maybe there's information we're missing." Carter leaned forward. "Your background check came back clean. Too clean. No social media presence. Minimal contact with family, no relationships, hobbies, or activities outside of military service." "I'm private. That's not a crime. It's unusual, especially for someone your age." "So is being good at something people don't expect doesn't make me suspicious." Morrison raised a hand, cutting off Carter's response. "Specialist, no one doubts your loyalty or your service, But Command needs answers before they can authorize your continued assignment to Phantom Team. What kind of answers? The truth about how you develop these capabilities. Ava felt anger rising, hot and sharp. She'd saved lives, accomplished impossible missions, proven herself in ways that should have mattered, and they were treating her like a threat. The truth? Her voice came out harder than intended. I watched. I learned. I paid attention when everyone assumed I was too unimportant to notice. I practiced on my own time. I studied ballistics manuals and tactical doctrine because I wanted to be more than what people expected. She stood, unable to sit still anymore. And when the moment came, when people I cared about were dying, I didn't freeze. I didn't hesitate. I did what needed doing. That's the truth. If it doesn't fit your profiles or expectations, maybe your profiles are wrong. Silence filled the office. Carter's expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. Calculation. Assessment. That's quite a speech, Specialist. It's not a speech. It's my life. And you expect us to accept that you're simply exceptional? That you developed elite-level skills through observation and determination? I expect you to judge me on results, not assumptions. Ava met her stare. I've completed 2 successful combat operations, saved multiple lives, achieved mission objectives under impossible conditions. If that's not enough proof of my value, nothing will be. Major Hendricks cleared his throat. The concern isn't your value, it's predictability. We need to know if your performance can be replicated, sustained, relied upon. Then give me another mission, test me. Stop questioning and start using me for what I'm good at. Morrison's eyebrows rose. You're volunteering for more combat operations? I'm volunteering to do my job, whatever that requires. The 3 officers exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Morrison nodded. Ms. Carter, Major Hendricks, thank you for your time. I'll take it from here. They left, Carter pausing at the door to study Ava one last time before disappearing. When they were gone, Morrison leaned back in his chair, exhaustion written across his face. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both, sir. They're going to keep digging, Carter especially. She doesn't believe in coincidences or miracles. Let her dig. She won't find anything because there's nothing to find. I hope you're right. He pulled out a new folder. Because in the meantime, I have a problem that needs your particular skill set. Sir? The intelligence leak. We still haven't identified the source, but we've narrowed it to 3 suspects. He slid photos across the desk. All with access to operational planning, all with opportunity. Any one of them could be feeding information to the enemy. Ava studied the faces. 2 senior NCOs she recognized by sight. 1 intelligence analyst she'd never met. How can I help? I'm not trained in counterintelligence. No, but you see things others miss. You proved that in the Valley, noticed details about enemy positioning and equipment that our trained analysts overlooked. He tapped the photos. I want you to observe these 3. Watch how they operate. Look for anything that feels wrong. You want me to spy on our own people? I want you to help protect this base from someone who's actively trying to get us killed. His voice hardened. Viper's death bought us time, but it didn't eliminate the threat. If the leak continues, more operations will be compromised. More people will die. What am I looking for? Anything unusual. Communication patterns, behavior changes, stress indicators. He met her eyes. You spent 6 months being invisible. Now use that invisibility as an asset. Watch without being noticed. It felt wrong, distrustful. But Morrison was right. The leak had already nearly killed Phantom Team once. I'll do it, sir. Thank you. And Morales? He paused. Despite the interrogation you just endured, I believe in you. Don't make me regret it. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in paranoia. Ava moved through base like a ghost again, but this time with purpose. She observed the 3 suspects during meals, training, downtime, watched who they talked to, how they moved, when they disappeared from view. The first suspect, Master Sergeant Collins, was by-the-book military, routine-driven, predictable. Nothing stood out except his obsessive adherence to protocol. The second, Staff Sergeant Williams, was social, popular, He spent his off hours playing cards with junior enlisted, told jokes at meals, seemed genuinely liked. The third, intelligence analyst Davis, was quiet, kept to herself. Spent hours in the classified section of the operations center, working alone. Any of them could be the leak, or none of them. "You're getting paranoid," Kim observed during lunch. "You've been watching people like you're expecting them to explode." "Just being observant? That's what paranoid people say." Kim lowered her voice. "What's really going on?" Ava wanted to tell her, wanted someone to share the weight of suspicion and doubt. But operational security was absolute. "Just adjusting to my new assignment." Kim didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. That night, Ava was reviewing her observations when Reeves found her in the supply depot, her old workspace, now feeling like a museum to someone she used to be. "Morrison told me what he assigned you," Reeves said without preamble. "Finding the leak." "I haven't found anything yet." "You won't. Not by watching." He sat across from her, expression serious. "Leaks don't get caught through observation. They get caught through mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "The kind you can force." He pulled out a document. "This is a fake operational plan. False information designed to look real. We're going to leak it to each suspect individually, different details to each one. Whichever version reaches the enemy tells us who the traitor is." "That's brilliant. It's basic counterintelligence, but it requires bait. Someone the enemy wants dead badly enough to act on incomplete intelligence." The implication settled cold in her stomach. "Me. You killed their commander, disrupted their operation, made them look weak." Reeves's eyes were hard. "If the leak tells them where you'll be, they'll come for you, and when they do, we'll know who talked. You're using me as bait to expose the traitor." "Yes, with your permission." She should have been angry, should have felt manipulated. Instead, she felt something else. Acceptance. This was the job now. Not just shooting, but being the tool that accomplished the mission, however necessary. "What do I have to do?" Reeves smiled, genuine this time. "Exactly what you're good at. Be somewhere you shouldn't be, doing something that matters. The rest will take care of itself." The operation was simple in concept, terrifying in execution. Ava would be conducting a solo reconnaissance mission to verify enemy positions near a suspected weapons cache. Each of the three suspects would receive slightly different grid coordinates for her patrol route. Whichever coordinates the enemy showed up at would identify the leak. "You'll have overwatch," Kane assured her during the brief. "Phantom team will be positioned to intervene if things go sideways. And if they don't intervene in time, then you do what you've been doing, survive." He met her eyes. "I won't lie to you, Specialist. This is dangerous. You're deliberately walking into a potential ambush. I've done that before. Not alone. Not as the primary target. I understand the risks, sir. I'm ready." She wasn't. But ready was a luxury people like her couldn't afford. The patrol began at 2200 hours. Ava moved through darkness with practiced silence, rifle ready, night vision painting the world in green and gray. The coordinates she was heading to matched the information given to Staff Sergeant Williams. If he was the leak, the enemy would be waiting. She reached the designated area, a rocky depression with sightlines in 3 directions, and set up a defensive position. Through her scope, the surrounding terrain appeared empty. No movement, no threats. Maybe Williams wasn't the leak. Maybe... The first round struck 3 feet to her left. She rolled right, bringing her rifle up, scanning for the shooter. There, muzzle flash from an elevated position 600 meters north. Sniper. "Contact," she whispered into her comm. "Enemy sniper, grid November 935. "Confirmed," Reeves responded. "Phantom is moving to intercept. Hold position." Hold position, while someone tried to kill her. She found cover behind a boulder, centering her scope on where the shot had originated. The enemy sniper was good. No further movement, no obvious position. Just the memory of that single muzzle flash. A second shot sparked off the boulder. Closer. He was ranging her. Ava forced her breathing to steady. This was the duel again, patience against patience, skill against skill. She waited for him to make the mistake. It came 30 seconds later, a shadow shifting, repositioning for a better angle. Just a flicker of movement. She fired. Through the scope, she saw the figure jerk, weapon tumbling from hands. Hit. Not fatal, but incapacitating. "Enemy sniper down," she reported. "Copy. Be advised you have multiple hostiles approaching from the west. Looks like a kill team. Phantom is 2 minutes out." 2 minutes. A lifetime when people were trying to kill you. Ava displaced from her position, moving to higher ground that gave her angles on the approaching enemy. Through her scope, she counted 8 fighters moving in tactical formation. Professional, coordinated. They knew exactly where she'd be, because Williams had told them. She centered her crosshairs on the lead element and started firing. The first shot dropped the point man. The second hit the team leader. She could tell by how the others reacted, suddenly leaderless and confused. The third missed as they scattered into cover. Return fire erupted, but she'd already displaced again, moving between positions, never staying still long enough to be targeted. 1 minute, Reeves called. "Keep them busy." Keep them busy. Military speak for, "Don't die for 60 more seconds." Ava fired into their positions, not aiming for kills but suppression. Keep their heads down. Slow their advance. Buy time for Phantom to arrive. Her ammunition counter dropped. 20 rounds. 15. 10. The enemy was adapting, flanking, using proper fire and maneuver to close distance. 5 rounds left. Then Phantom team arrived like a hammer from heaven. Gunfire erupted from multiple positions, catching the enemy kill team in a crossfire. The professional formation dissolved into chaos and casualties. Within 30 seconds, it was over. 5 enemy dead, 3 wounded, and captured. Reeves appeared at Ava's position, breathing hard. "You good?" "Yeah, they knew exactly where I'd be, which means Williams is our leak." His expression darkened. "That bastard. What happens now?" "Now we arrest him. Get him to talk. Find out how deep this goes." He looked at her. "And you get to stop being bait." The arrest happened at 0300 hours. Ava watched from the shadows as MPs took Williams into custody outside his quarters. He didn't resist, didn't protest, just went quietly, face empty of emotion. She'd expected anger, maybe, defiance, some sign that he cared about being caught. Instead, he looked relieved. The interrogation took 6 hours. Ava wasn't present, but Morrison briefed her afterward, face gray with exhaustion and disgust. He confessed everything. Been selling information for 8 months? Started small, patrol routes, equipment manifests. Escalated to operational planning when they paid him enough. Why? Gambling debts. He was in deep to some bad people. They threatened his family. Morrison's jaw tightened. Not an excuse, just the reason. Is his family safe? We're relocating them. Witness protection. The people he owed money to are being arrested by federal agents. He paused. He asked about you. Wanted to know if you survived. The statement hung in the air, complex and uncomfortable. What did you tell him? That you did, and that his information almost got you killed. Morrison's eyes were hard. He'll face court-martial, maximum sentence. His career is over. Ava felt something twist in her chest. Not sympathy. Williams had betrayed people who trusted him. But understanding, maybe. Of desperation. Of making terrible choices because all options were terrible. What about the enemy forces he was working with? We're conducting operations to dismantle their network. Williams gave us everything. Contacts, drop sites, operational procedures. It'll take time, but we'll roll them up. He looked at her. Your actions exposed and stopped a security breach that could have compromised this entire base. That matters. Doesn't feel like it matters. It does. Trust me. Asi. 3 days later, Ava stood in the medical bay watching Park sleep. He'd stabilized. Doctor said he'd make a full recovery. Eventually. For now, he was just another casualty healing at the slow pace of damaged bodies. He asked about you, Diaz said, appearing at her shoulder. Before the last surgery, wanted to know if you were taking care of his rifle. I am. He knows. Also said if you scratched it, he'd haunt you. Diaz smiled. His words, not mine. When will he wake up? A few more days, probably. His body needs time. Diaz studied her face. You look different since the first time I met you. How? Harder. Like you've seen things that changed you. He paused. Have you? She thought about the valley, the burning compound, the faces of people she'd killed, Williams being led away in handcuffs. Yeah, I have. Does it get easier? The same question she'd asked Kim, now being asked of her. No, she said honestly. You just get better at carrying it. Diaz nodded, accepting the answer. For what it's worth, you're doing good work, saving lives, making a difference. Doesn't always feel like it. Rarely does, but it's true anyway. He left her standing there, looking at Park's unconscious form, wondering what he'd think when he woke up and found his rifle in her hands. The ceremony happened at 1600 hours. Formal, official. The entire base assembled in dress uniforms, standing in precise formations under brutal desert sun. Morrison stood at a podium, voice carrying across the assembled personnel. We gather today to recognize exceptional valor and service under the most demanding circumstances. Specialist Ava Morales, front and center. Ava marched forward, back straight, eyes forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of stares. Morrison continued, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against enemy forces, for repeatedly exposing yourself to hostile fire to protect your fellow soldiers, and for demonstrating combat effectiveness far exceeding your rank and experience, you are hereby awarded the Bronze Star Medal with V device for valor. He pinned the medal to her chest, the small piece of metal feeling impossibly heavy. Additionally, you are promoted to the rank of sergeant, effective immediately, and assigned as primary designated marksman for Phantom Team. Applause rippled through the assembly. Genuine, respectful. Kane stepped forward, offering his hand. Welcome to the team, Sergeant. Official, this time. She shook it, feeling the callous strength of someone who'd survived what most couldn't imagine. Reeves was next. You earned this. Don't let anyone tell you different. The ceremony continued. Speeches about duty and honor and sacrifice. Ava stood through it all, mind only half present, thinking about the journey from invisible supply runner to decorated sniper. 6 days. That's all it had taken to transform her entire existence. When it ended, soldiers approached to offer congratulations. Some genuine, others wary, still uncertain about the anomaly in their ranks. Kim found her after the crowd dispersed. Bronze Star, promotion, official badass status. How does it feel? Surreal. Yeah, well, get used to it. You're famous now. Everyone's going to have opinions about you. I noticed. Ignore them. The only opinions that matter are from people who've stood where you've stood. Kim's expression softened. I'm proud of you, for what it's worth. It's worth a lot. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun descend toward the horizon, painting the desert in shades of fire and gold. What happens now? Kim asked. More training, more missions, more trying not to die while accomplishing impossible things. Sounds like a plan. It's not much of one. It's yours. That's enough. That night, Ava sat in Phantom Team's operations room with Kane, Reeves, and the other operators planning their next mission. She was one of them now. Not a supply runner, not an outsider, a member of the team. Intel indicates enemy forces are regrouping here, Kane said, pointing to a map. They're planning retaliatory strikes for Viper's death and Williams's arrest. We need to disrupt their operations before they can organize. What's the timeline? Reeves asked. 48 hours to plan and rehearse. 72 to execution. The conversation flowed around her. Tactical discussions, risk assessments, equipment needs. Ava contributed when relevant, stayed quiet when she didn't have expertise. Learning, adapting, becoming what the team needed. After the briefing, Kane pulled her aside. You handled yourself well in there. Just listening mostly. Listening is underrated. He studied her face. You know what you're committing to, right? This isn't temporary. This is your life now. Every mission carries risk. Every operation could be your last. I know. And you're okay with that? She thought about the question, really thought about it. Was she okay with a life defined by violence, by watching people through scopes and making them disappear, by carrying the weight of necessary killing? No, she said honestly. I'm not okay with it, but I'm willing to do it anyway, because someone has to, and I can. Kane nodded slowly. That's the right answer, the honest one. He paused. Just don't lose yourself in the process. Remember why you're doing this. To protect people. To protect people, he agreed. The moment you forget that, you become something else. Something we don't need. He left her standing in the operations room, surrounded by maps of places she'd soon risk her life in. The door opened. Park stood there, leaning on a cane, face pale but eyes sharp. "Heard you've been using my rifle," he said. "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. I can return it." "Don't." He limped into the room, moving to where she stood. "I've seen the after-action reports. Read about your shots. Talk to people who watched you work." He held out his hand. "Keep it. You've earned it. And call me Dave. We're on the same team now." She shook his hand, feeling the significance of the gesture. "Thank you for everything. Thank you for saving my team when I couldn't." He smiled, genuine warmth. "You're better than I was at your stage. Maybe better than I am now. That rifle's in good hands. I'll take care of it. I know you will." He turned to leave, pausing at the door. "And Sergeant, welcome home." The words hit harder than any medal or promotion. Home. Not the barracks or the base. This, the team, the mission, the purpose. After he left, Ava walked to the armory where her rifle waited, cleaned, maintained, ready for the next operation. She picked it up, feeling its familiar weight, the balance that had become second nature. Through the scope, she could see the desert beyond the base perimeter. Vast, empty, hostile, but not unconquerable. 6 days ago, she'd been invisible, dismissed, forgotten. Today, she was Sergeant Ava Morales. Sniper, phantom team, someone who mattered. The transformation had cost her innocence, sleep, and pieces of her soul she'd never recover. But she'd gained something more valuable, proof that potential wasn't fixed, that circumstances didn't define capability, that the overlooked could become essential when pressure demanded truth. Tomorrow, she'd face new missions, new enemies, new chances to prove herself or die trying. Tonight, she allowed herself one moment of peace, one moment of certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. The rifle's scope caught the last light of sunset, refracting it into brilliant shards. Ava smiled. Ready. The desert wind carried voices across the base, soldiers talking, laughing, preparing for another day in a war that never really ended. Morning formation would come at 0600, training at 0700. Mission briefings whenever Kane decided the team was ready. Ava returned the rifle to its case, securing it with the same precision she'd learned during her invisible months as a supply clerk. Some habits died hard. Some should never die at all. She walked to her new quarters, the team barracks, not the support personnel building. Her bunk was surrounded by people who'd seen what she'd seen, done what she'd done, understood what the rest of the world never could. Kim was waiting outside, holding 2 cups of terrible coffee. "Thought you could use this." "You have no idea." They sat on the steps, watching stars emerge as darkness fell, sipping coffee that tasted like burnt motor oil and tasted perfect anyway. "You scared?" Kim asked. "Terrified." "Good. Means you're sane." Kim bumped her shoulder. "For the record, I always knew you were special. Just took everyone else 6 months to notice." "I'm not special. I'm just stubborn." "Same thing in this line of work." They sat in silence, comfortable and complete, while the base settled into night rhythms around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, new chances to fail or succeed in ways that determined who lived and who died. But tonight Ava Morales was simply a soldier among soldiers, a sniper among warriors, a person who'd proven that invisible didn't mean powerless, that overlooked didn't mean incapable, that the smallest voice, given the right moment, could echo louder than thunder. She'd risen not because someone gave her permission, but because she'd seized the moment when it mattered most, had transformed pressure into purpose, fear into focus, doubt into devastating certainty. The rifle waited in the armory, patient as death, ready for tomorrow's violence. The team waited in the operations room, planning the next mission, trusting her to do impossible things. The enemy waited somewhere in the darkness, unaware that the soldier they'd dismissed as irrelevant had become the weapon they should fear most. And Ava Morales, former supply clerk, current sniper, always and forever stubborn, waited for dawn, ready to prove once again that potential recognized is power unleashed. The stars overhead burned with ancient light, indifferent to human struggles, beautiful despite their distance. She finished her coffee, stood, and walked toward tomorrow. Visible, valued, ready. When pressure reveals truth, the underestimated don't rise by chance. They rise because they were always capable, just waiting for the world to stop looking away.